pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. I'm going to choose the invocation for that. Our friend, Pastor Dennis Hudson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the privilege. It's always good to see you all. Sorry I have to rush off. But anyway, now let's pray. Gracious Father, we come today, first of all, just to say thank you for the beautiful day you've given us. Lord, every day we get to live as a blessing and a gift from you, and we want to say thank you for that too. Lord, we also want to say thank you for the privilege of stopping and just talking to you. We don't always remember how important it is that we connect to you, because you are the one that gives us life. But more than that, Father, you want to connect with us. You want to be a part of who we are and what we do. And that's so important. Lord, we also want to thank you for Nan Stanford and her service to this city. We ask that you would comfort and strengthen the family as they go through the time of grief. We ask that you would just wrap your loving arms around them and hold them close. Lord, as they tend to things that matter tonight, we ask that you would be in the presence of this assembly. Let your will be known. Let your spirit be felt. That what is done not only brings honor to you, but does good for this city. We pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Bless you all.
All right, item number 3 is audience participation. So if there is an item you wish to speak that is on the agenda, please fill out a form with the city secretary, one of these. Also, if I call a public hearing, and that is open. Once we call public hearing, you don't have to fill out a form. When I call for feedback, you may approach the dais. So there's 2 ways to join the meeting tonight. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. A is action regarding minutes of March 1st. B is action regarding building improvement grant with Farmers Insurance. C is action regarding award of contract for 2022 annual mowing. D is action regarding approval of preliminary plat for Hartwick, 21.095 acres. E is action regarding approval of final plat for Hartwick, 21.095 acres. F is action regarding appointment of Lee Howe as Police Reserve Officer. I've had a request to pull items C, D, and E. So I will entertain a motion for A, B, and F.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda A, B, and F as presented.
I'll second.
Mr. Beasley, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, excellent. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum this evening. Full house. Thank you all for coming. Item C, action regarding award of mowing contract for 2022. For that, Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, Council. This is a contract that we award every 2 years. This year, we used, Brightview Landscaping last year, and I'm sorry, the other way around. Yellowstone Landscaping last year, and this award of contract we're recommending that goes to Brightview. And Brightview has quite a resume. They do big work. They have a lot of capabilities. So, in fact, they're coming in also under our budget amount for mowing. So, if you got any questions specifically, I'll try to answer those.
Council questions for Rick? Cindy, you have a question?
I have a question. I just have one question. Last year, I think when we discussed this, we said that we couldn't hire part-time employees to do full-time work for the mowing or whatever, that it wasn't beneficial or whatever. I'm not against it. I'm just asking the question, why can we do it for like the pool or something else and we can't do it for that? I'm just asking the question.
For the pool, we'll say that the mowing contract doesn't hit 100% of city right-of-way and owned properties. So There are areas that city staff is better geared, and one of those is drainage channels. There's specialized equipment that we have, a boom that can lower along a side slope of a channel to mow those and clear those that, we don't ask of our contractors. There are other areas where you need to be responsive in a short term. So, we have capability to do mowing, but not to this level. And it would be, we prepared a memo last time that we awarded the contract just to talk about some of the justification for not going into the mowing business. It's just you have to staff up, and then you have to cycle down, and it's tough to even keep our full-time positions filled, much less try to gear up and be behind the curve basically when the growing season starts. So, like I say, there are some areas that we respond to, like the landscaping around City Hall. Our staff regularly, if it needs attention or some manicuring, we respond to those sorts of things, but not the large scale work.
So if I understand correct, what you're saying is, there's nothing stopping us from hiring either seasonal workers or part-time workers to do this work, other than I'm assuming there's an economical reason why.
Contractors are in the business, and they do it on a daily basis, and they're good at it. I mean, it's just, you're going to hire seasonal workers probably out of high school or in college that, they're just not used to that sort of production that we get out of a contractor like this. And plus there's the liability. I mean, we have a park named after a city employee that died mowing city property. I mean, it's a dangerous work. And so, we don't carry that liability and the liability associated with a death or injury on the job. Contractor has to be insured, so he carries that liability. So there's a myriad of reasons why, we would prefer to contract that out.
Okay.
Any other questions on C?
Yes.
Yeah, Cindy?
I had a neighbor that did some mowing, and he was wanting to know how this is advertised so he could possibly bid on a job.
They are publicly advertised, just like any project that we have. So, I mean, you just have to monitor.
Where do you go to?
Star Telegram and legal notices.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that again?
Star Telegram and
Star
legal
Telegram?
notices, yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think they were looking on the website or something like that.
I don't know that we have a portal for advertised projects or not on the website. I mean, that's probably something that we should have if we don't have it, so we can look
And
into
what's the
that, make
time
sure that
frame?
we have it. Yes,
What's the
So-
time frame to start bidding on those jobs?
this time of year. I mean, so we're looking at March time frame. So we opened bids, I guess, a couple of weeks ago on this project, and so that means we advertise probably late February.
Late Feb? Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So just being nosy, when is our first mowing of the year? First mowing of the year?
It's kind of an as-needed basis. I mean, so we gear up and mobilize this time of year to be ready for a growing season. Every season is different because you have wet seasons and dry seasons, and the growing cycle, sometimes you have to mow weekly, sometimes you really have to mow about every 4 days, so, to keep up with it. But so we just want to be in the blocks and ready for the early growing season.
Oh, Cindy?
Since,
Okay, just to respond to Cindy's question, yes, there is a portal on the website that talks about when jobs are being advertised
okay,
for construction. So
I was going to ask if we could put one.
I
since we
thought
have a
there was, but I
communications
couldn't.
Guru now.
it's not something I visit every day. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, any other questions on C? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve item C on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that we approve the award contract for 2022 for the annual mowing.
Thank you, Nick. Charlie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Item D, action regarding approval of preliminary plat for Hardwick. For this, Rick Trice.
yes, sir. You'll recall that this past year, or I guess late last year, we approved the Villas of Willow Creek PD. This is the next phase of that development, is the platting of the property. So the preliminary plat and the other final plat are the plats required for that project to start its construction on the civil, and of course required to get building permits on the property. So Part of this will be that there will be an abandonment of Westwood, which was agreed to by the neighborhood and the city, that will not allow through movement through the development, which is now known as Hardwick and not Villas of Willow Creek. So there's a name change. The only other change from the PD is they have street names for the private streets. That
Council questions for Rick?
The city manager wanted me to remind you all that as long as the plat, whether it's preliminary plat or final plat, meets both state statutes and the city's code of ordinances, it's an administrative function, all that to pass that.
Is your microphone on?
Oh, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I just wanted to remind you all that when considering preliminary plats and final plats, if the law has been complied with both at the state law level and with the ordinances of the city, it needs to be passed because if they check the box, it goes through. And I just want to remind the council of that.
Right, so once Planning and Zoning Board approves it, it's legally, it's done. Our approval is just, as you would say, ministerial,
Correct.
which means non-legal, define ministerial.
It has to be done.
Thank you. Our council questions on this one?
I got one clarification question that's confusing from that. I don't know if it applies to this or not, but it definitely does this neighborhood. Are the garbage boxes, where you want to call them, garbage cans, are they going to be individual garbage cans at each house, or is it going to be a huge dumpster style? Because there seems to be some confusion on that backwards and forwards. And I distinctly remember they were supposed to be individual garbage cans.
these PDs, and including the next one, have an underlying multifamily zoning, so that's why you get a blend of both the residential, which would have individual pickup, versus dumpsters, which would be, like an apartment complex. And so there's no requirement that the units would have individual garbage pickup. Jerry Silo's here to maybe respond to the
So
Hardwick
could we get
specifically.
that clarification?
He just thought he wasn't going to have to speak tonight, but
Good evening. My name is Jerry Silo. I'm with JBI Partners, 2121 Midway Road in Carrollton, Texas, representing the applicant. If you remember from our presentation, the trash, they have a concierge service where they will have the trash out and they will have a group of people that go drive by and pick it up.
Okay, so they'll go by and pick the trash up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's not a big dumpster, it's each individual trash cans. And
They're going to
stuff.
have a dumpster to put it in.
Huh?
They'll have to have a dumpster to put it in, won't they?
Well, a truck, I guess.
I'm not sure how that portion of it, I presume there will be
Well, I know the one out on, whatever, Blue Mound and 156 and whatever that road is, they have a big dumpster, but they have individual trash cans, I think, that they take to the dumpster and dump it in.
for pickup, I presume it's going to be a commercial dumpster out there to pick it all up.
Gotcha. Because that was one of the sticking points was not, rental, what do you call them?
Multifamily.
Multifamily rental properties
Yeah.
versus this, that the citizens specifically stated they did not want the big dumpsters.
I don't know.
So.
We'd have to
yeah,
find that
it's-
out.
I thought that was promised in the discussions with the citizens at Park West. I thought that was agreed to, no dumpsters.
well,
I don't specifically remember the conversation.
yeah,
Dave,
I
do you
don't.
remember?
I don't remember that conversation either as part of the PD, and it will not be. Certainly, that's something that council, I guess, can weigh in on, but it's not something that's found in the subdivision ordinance or the zoning ordinance on how dumpster service would be, trash service would be provided. So,
Well, it was distinctly talked about. I mean, I can go back and review the meetings if I need to,
yeah.
but I distinctly remember that being talked about. And it just, like I say, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I was under the impression, and somebody said, no, that's what they thought, but then when they talked about it later, they said that there was going to be these big dumpsters at the end of the road, and I'm like, well, that's not, the intent. I expected them to be the same as my neighborhood, individual garbage cans. You go out there, a dump truck comes by, you dump it in. not you go out there, somebody loads it up and then takes it to a big spot and holds it there.
So could you find this out for us,
Yes, sir, I will.
please? I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it. And that's the council's feedback. I think it's very clear what we expect and what we like, so. But yeah, but you're right, Rick, that's not part of the preliminary plat. So that's not specifically mentioned on the plating. So, but that is what the council wants, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Oh, other questions before we let this guy go? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Any other questions on, we're on D, but D and E together.
So, yeah, so the council has told us the law. So I'm not a lawyer, and I definitely haven't read this contract from a law standpoint. So who reports back to us tells the council whether or not they're abiding by this law. I need to know whether or not,
Or agreement.
apply this agreement.
If you're asking that question of me, the only thing that is before the council right now regarding that development is consideration of the preliminary plat. And it's already made its way through planning and zoning. It came through unanimously.
Right.
It's just, really, it's a ministerial act that y'all had to follow to approve it. If there are other things that you want to look at with respect to what's going on with the plan development, the development agreement, things like that, we could talk about that offline, and I can get with city manager and the planning director about that.
Okay. I just wanted, again, you brought that up, and I didn't, like I say, I'm not a lawyer, so I wanted to make,
I will just say that the development agreement only had really two major provisions. That one was the architectural standards, which require the 75% masonry, and then the second was that it would be developed in accordance with the development plan. So, unless there's no language in the development agreement which binds the developer to have a specific type of garbage service to the unit. So I'll just tell you, it's not covered anywhere in any of the agreements today.
All right, yeah, so for the plat, this is not on the plat, so we really can't hold them to anything on the plat, but we can request that, and we made the request to this gentleman. So we'd just like a follow-up at some point in the near future, and follow up through staff. We don't follow up to council, please. Would appreciate that. And then keep in mind what a plat is and what it isn't, and so it does not include this kind of, as Rick said, that's in the development agreement. So please keep that in mind, platting discussions. So other questions on C or D? No, D and E, sorry. If not, I'll entertain a motion for items D and E.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve items C and D,
D and E.
D and E as presented.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Mary, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you, guys. That's it. All right, item 5, presentation of the 2021 Economic Excellence Award from the Texas Economic Development Council. For that, City Manager Gabe Rainey.
Mayor and Council, it's always nice to be recognized. So for those in the audience and those watching at home, the City Council in 2016 decided that economic development was a focus area and created a strategic plan for economic development. So when I was hired in January of 18, hard to think that 4 years has flown by, economic development was something that the City Council really desired. So we're really happy with some of the progress we've made in a short amount of time in the lifespan of a city for having a new program and new staff at the helm. So happy to be recognized by the Texas Economic Development Council, and I'd like to defer to Keith Reinhardt, who heads up that division, and he can talk a little further.
I plead the fifth. No. It's just an honor to receive that from Texas Economic Development Council. Very proud.
So what did we do that they were recognized? What all steps have we taken that they appreciate?
How we operate, the plans that we have in place. We recently won an award from TEDC for our building improvement grant. This award was more specifically for the department as a whole and how we're operating. Okay. Professionalism, continuing education, just how the department is set up and operating.
Excellent. Okay. That's what this is for. I've got a very nice plaque. You want to take a picture with Keith?
You're going to have to put that.
I know. You want to do that? It's usually Keith taking the picture, so we'll get Keith in the picture this time.
That's enough. How many do you take?
One thing I forgot to mention earlier was that out of the 500-600 cities that have economic development departments, we're one of 57 that received the award, so pretty proud of that.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. A lot of awards this year. Great work. Item 6, introduction of new police officers. Chief Ragsdale.
We're going to have to move again, aren't we?
He want us in the picture.
Oh.
Actually, you're not going to have to move because we're going to have your pictures made with our officers this time. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you and members of council for allowing me to be here. So it's my honor to introduce to you two of our recent new hires, Dominic Garcia and Trenton Dickens. Mr. Garcia has family that lives here in town and works here in town, and Mr. Trenton, he was born and raised here. His father actually retired from the city. So, gentlemen, if I can get you to come up here. Right off to my left here, if you'll stand kind of in front of Mr. Beasley there and face back towards me, we'll do the ceremonial swearing in. If you'll repeat after me, I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of police officer of the state of Texas and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God. If I can get an affirmative response from you. All right, good deal. All right, gentlemen, congratulations and welcome to the Saginaw Police Department family. So they do have family here. What I would like to do is have their families come up with them. Stand in front of y'all. Y'all approach up to the stand.
Chief, you want us to stand here, stand in place?
Yes, y'all be standing in the background.
Let me get in this picture.
Get everybody in here.
Act like you like each other. It's okay.
Me too.
Oh, to the mayor.
You got me right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome aboard, guys. Look forward to working with you. Glad to have you here in Saginaw. Item number 7. Oh, and families, you're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay all night.
Yeah, y'all can. You're more than welcome to stay if you want to.
They don't want to stay.
I know.
I don't want to make them do that. Come
I
on.
know.
Come lock them in here.
That's right. That's right.
That little guy with the cowboy hat needs to go home.
I know. He's good. He was. He had a piece of candy. He's good.
Oh, he's good for a while?
Yeah,
All right.
he's good for a minute.
All right. Item number 7, public hearing at 6:24. We are in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding adoption of Resolution 2022-02, 2022 Community Development Block Grant Project, new sidewalk construction. For that, Director of Public Works, Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mayor. You may recall in November of last year, we awarded an individual project order to Kimley Horn excuse me, for design of sidewalk on Thompson Road, which is the main spine road that basically runs from Saginaw Elementary all the way to Longhorn. We knew at that time that that project would be leveraged against the CDBG grant opportunity, which happens on a 2-year cycle. We missed the last cycle because of COVID, but they're alive and well, and so we have applied to leverage that money against that grant. Part of that process is for you to take public hearing for comments from the public that this is the project that we want to do as a city. And I would just say that and then, of course, pass the resolution endorsing or setting the project. Just some of the numbers for your information. The engineering that was awarded back in November was $85,000 to Kinley Horn, and at that time we had a total project cost $475,000. That would be engineering and construction. The engineering includes construction management and all those activities. So a turnkey cost estimated at $475,000. We anticipate that this grant will award us about $200,000. So that will be money that will come out from city coffers and be applied from the CDBG. So it's a good way to leverage those funds for that project. Those original funds came from the $1 million in CO for the 2020 CO sale. So this will free up that unused money for additional sidewalk projects in the city. So with that, I entertain public hearing or public comments, and then if you've got any questions, I'll
Okay, let's take council questions first, then public
Sure.
comment. So, council questions for Rick about this project?
Nah, the only thing I got is just a statement. It's very nice I'm glad to see this, especially after I asked some questions, found out that this was going from there all the way to the school. Because we got a couple different schools where kids are walking through the grass, trying to get to school. And what ends up happening when it rains, they're walking on the side of the road. We see that over on Blue Mountain actually significantly. So I'm very happy, at least from a safety standpoint, this to happen.
I think that if you look at an aerial of Saginaw, this is the area, the residential area that's south of the elementary school is probably the only area or neighborhood in Saginaw that has no sidewalk or virtually no sidewalk. We've had sidewalk projects over the last 4 or 5 years that we've installed there, and this is just a continuation of that process. So this will be basically an arterial, if you will, or a collector that will run the length of that neighborhood and get people to a sidewalk to and around Saginaw Elementary. So
I do have one comment.
Go ahead.
I can say that the sidewalks that they've done look really nice, and people have commented about them, how nice they are. They look really nice.
Awesome.
you do, my experience is that anytime that you have a sidewalk or street improvement in an older area, that you see some synergy take place and people take a lot more pride, and you see people doing home improvements. So, it's an overall, it's a good thing to revitalize areas like that.
Yeah.
One thing about, keep in mind the CDBG, I always have trouble with that. That project is only certain parts of town we can use it on. Yeah. It's based on income and property values and things. So there's a limited area. We can't just do anywhere with these grants. I was on the Tarrant County committee for this a couple of years ago, and it's interesting. Not every city has zones, and there's only certain places and certain things you can do. So it's great. We can take advantage of it. I mean, this is free money from the feds. That's $200,000 free money from the feds. If it doesn't go to us, it'll go to somebody else. So yes, we need to take advantage of it. It's awesome. We get sidewalks for almost 50 cents on the dollar. Yep. So it's a really great thing. I'm sorry, other questions? Cindy?
What is the timeline on this construction?
We have to be awarded the grant first, and then, of course, it's already, design had started in November. As soon as we get a green light from CDBG, we'll advertise, and I would anticipate we'd have sidewalk construction beginning in the summer.
Okay, and about how long do we think that would last? 6 months, year, 2
years? $475,000, or
I know Opal's pretty long.
About a $400,000 project, probably 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months.
Wow,
it's pretty quick. But the problem with retrofitting a sidewalk in an area like that is it's almost design build in the field. I mean, you really can't put on paper what you need to do out there. So there's a lot of fitting that goes on during the construction process. So But we should be substantially complete before the next school year starts, we would hope.
Well, I know there's a lot of places on Opal Street where the sidewalk drops a good 3 inches, so it'd be nice to have that repaired. So thank you so much.
Council, other questions? If no council questions, this is a public hearing, so folks in the audience, now's your time to speak. You don't have to fill out a form. You just approach the dais if you would like to speak on this item. So please. Anybody? If not, then at 6:30, I will take us out of a public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to pass the consideration and action for the adoption of the resolution 2022-02, Community Development Block Grant.
Okay. Cindy, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rick. Item number 8, consideration action regarding a development agreement with Next Metro Communities regarding architectural standards for exterior masonry in neighborhood, setback requirements on land described as approximately 16.43 acres of land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Blue Mound. Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is in preparation for the following item, which is the PD for a villa. This is, again, because state law prohibits cities from defining or requiring certain architectural building materials. This development agreement will bind that developer to make these improvements with certain standards, which is 75% masonry. You can see the development standards that are mentioned in the agreement that's attached. In exchange for that, we're going to waive $10,000 in permit fees as consideration in exchange for those improvements. So I will say that the agreement that's attached to your council memo in your packet is not the agreement that will be signed. The agreement that's in your packet is actually to the developer, and because the property has not been conveyed yet, the agreement needs to be both to the developer and the property owner, so that when the PD zoning runs with the land, so that the property owner would be bound to that agreement also in that PD development plan. So if the property conveys, then it will be a moot point, but we do have an agreement that the property owner has executed. It's just not part of the attached to the memo tonight. So, for your information,
Will you refresh our memory as to the location? I did not do a very good job.
this would be the northwest corner of Bailey Boswell and FM 156.
Council, questions on this development agreement? Mary, please.
The way I look at it, this was approved because the developer agreed to make these concessions. That is the way it got approved. So I see no reason why the city should feel obligated to forgive any fees that arise.
I think that the issue that was raised on the villas of Willow Creek was that the city, this really takes the form, even though it doesn't say it's an economic development agreement. It's really the only vehicle to get that done, and there has to be real consideration. So just to say, in exchange for $1, which a lot of dedication instruments have, it's just a token consideration, and this has to be something that's a little more robust, which is why we have a $10,000 figure, and that was used. Again, the precedent set on villas at that time. So if you recall that conversation when Bren kind of briefed you at that evening meeting.
Right, so legally we have to put some money up.
That's correct.
To make it valid. And Larry, would you want to explain that a little better, Larry? So why we have to do that?
Yeah, 2 years ago, the legislature decided to take exterior material requirements that the city could impose on residential and commercial structures away from the local governments. You couldn't make those requirements anymore. And so what this does is, instead of it being done through ordinance, you're doing it through contract with the developer. And so the developer in this case he's saying, I'm going to whatever it states in the development agreement, 75% masonry is one of the requirements, then the city needs to give something to him, back to him in consideration of that, to be able to make that stick. And so what the city is doing here is, the city is not, you're paying for it by not charging, you'll be building permit fees after $10,000. But the first $10,000 will not be charged, and what that does is that makes this agreement enforceable, these standards enforceable that were taken away 2 years ago.
Well, the way I look at it is any developer can go above and beyond the rules that are required. And if they choose to do so to make a better development, or in order to get this body to pass that request, to approve that request, I don't think the city has to pay them for, that's what they had to do to get it approved.
I think one of the issues with that approach is that it becomes a quid pro quo. You can't approve conditional development. You can't say that we'll do this if you do that. I mean, there has to be an agreement in place to bind them to those improvements.
Isn't that what we're doing? We'll relieve you of a $10,000 cost if you do this. That's what we're doing.
In a sense, but again, it's an economic development agreement. So I mean, that's just, unfortunately, the legislator didn't do us any favors. So this is the way that we have to approach it.
Well, the next item, as you said, is connected to this, and it probably won't surprise most of the people in this audience that I'm not for that, so I won't be for this development agreement.
The one thing I see on this, regardless of the second one there, but I've now had 2 incidences where I've had people come up here as I've been on council, and I've only been on here, 8 months, 9 months, where they've actually stated stuff, okay, and then come back later and found out that was absolutely not the case. And I've actually reached out to our council, say, I guess for better like words, they lied to the city. And without something binding, nothing we can do about it. So I like this just because if it does pass, it's with this $10 trade, it's binding. They have to do this. Mm-hmm. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. You've got a binding contract with the developer at that point.
Yeah. And not that I don't trust or I think that this group's going to come up here and say one thing and do another, but I've been twice bitten, so now I'm pretty daggone shy, and anything going forward, you can bet I'm going to be looking over at our council. How do I make this to where it's good for our citizens?
I'll just say, I mean, I just talked to the developer, and I mean, he said that they were willing to do it for $1. It's not. Yeah. It's not the developer. I mean, they're not. It's not negotiating. It's what we have to do. So that's why.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, blame the legislator. Don't blame the developer. Blame the legislature on this for changing the rules on it. So we were not very happy about that, but this is where we live, and that's the world which we live in right now. So, no, and Nikki, you bring up a good point. I mean, I wouldn't be very excited about this development if it was not masonry at all. Not at all. I would not want anything except masonry. So I think that is key to this.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, other questions? We're still on 8. So other questions on 8? Yes, ma'am.
And I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll be quiet.
Go ahead.
I believe I'm correct, but if I'm not, let me know, that this development agreement could simply state, we're going to do the masonry, we're going to do these setbacks, period. And would it then not be binding, if that's what the development agreement said, without any mention of any forgiving of any fees? If those fees being forgiven were not even mentioned, would that not be binding, just to have it stated?
Probably not, because what you're looking for is to have consideration that something is given and something is received. And in this case, the city is receiving the benefit of this exterior requirement. The developer is not receiving anything back. And, one of the things you have to look at is, they may not be the developer in the future. And, you want to make sure this is all enforceable at the end of the day.
Okay, well, I'm not an attorney, but I cannot be swayed with that argument.
Council, other questions? If no, nope. Cindy, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at item B4 on Exhibit B. Exhibit B? Yes. It says surface spaces, detached garages, and covered parking shall be allowed and count toward the minimum parking requirements. There's a lot of heartache in this city about not being able to put up carports wide, and I've gotten a few phone calls over this statement why these people are able to have covered parking at this development, but we can't throughout the rest of the city.
You'll recall last year that we approved an amendment to the zoning ordinance that allowed carports on multifamily developments, so that's why they're allowed on this. So, I mean, we also allowed them on public facilities, specifically because of the fire department, to have a place for covering their vehicles, including the emergency equipment. So it is what it is. If you want to lift the carport requirement citywide, or prohibition, then just tell staff and we'll come back with an ordinance amendment.
I think a lot of the single-family homes would like to be able to add carports to their homes.
I think, again, as we discussed at the time that we amended the zoning ordinance, that the reason, I guess, that there was a zone identified in the ordinance to disallow carports is because of the proliferation of carports and just the aesthetic, diminished aesthetic value of that, appearance in a neighborhood street. So that was a valid reason. I mean, a lot of cities take that approach, and I think it's valid in some areas. So,
But I still think it's the citizens' decision.
it's the council's decision.
Well, they bring it to the council, and then we vote on it
If that's the
on their
direction
behalf.
that council wants us to bring, we'll certainly do that.
The thing about this is, these aren't apartments. These are actual houses that just happen to be owned by one organization, one consortium, which rents them all out. So to me, I look at it more like 3 doors down from me, there's a house, and the person decides to rent it. All of a sudden, they don't get to build a carport, because these are literally little houses.
They are, but the underlying zoning is MF1, so I mean, it's apartments. It's a business venture. I mean, there's not, these are not individually owned and deeded, titled properties. They're one property, one owner.
We have a high percentage of our own houses that are now rent houses.
Excuse me?
We have a high percentage of homes here that are now rent houses.
That is correct.
I thought when we discussed that when we said something about apartments, it was like a parking under. We actually said it was carports on the housing?
Yes, ma'am. It was,
Okay.
well, it wasn't on houses. It was on MF,
apartment.
multifamily zoning. Yes.
Because it's on multifamily, yeah.
But I thought it was like, they put the long ones out in front of the
It
apartments.
was specifically done for the Grand, which is under construction now in Belt Mill. So, I mean, that was their request, although, it had merit. So, I mean, I think it was a reasonable request, and we came forward and you approved an amendment.
I think they're trying to differentiate between parking, having covered parking on the street and covered parking on your driveway.
Yeah. Well, these would be covered parking on your driveway.
The development plan shows, I mean, if you look at the layout, and we can get into that in the next item, but it's configured, the parking is configured much like an apartment complex. So there will be head-in parking, some areas that will be garaged, and some areas that will be carport. Some areas will be open. So they don't have specific, like the villas was different in that it had individual home units and individual driveways. So there was no street parking. In fact, we didn't want street parking because we wanted to keep those avenues clear for the fire department, any emergency vehicles. So that's the difference.
So we're going to allow street parking in this development? No? Okay.
There's, again, the development plan will speak for itself on where parking would be allowed. So it's head-in parking. I think you can see it on the plan.
And I also see that the spacing between the houses is 9
I
foot
think,
minimum
I-
between slabs. So what does that give us at the roof line?
If we want to continue this question, I'm fine with it, but it might be best that we dispose of the development agreement and then go into the.
Oh, you're right, we're talking two different things, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So let's stick to development agreement, we can discuss that on number 9. Is that fair? All right, so 8, we're still development agreement. Any other questions on the specific development agreement itself? No more questions on number 8 for development agreement. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we consider the development agreement as, with Next Metro as spelled out.
I'll second.
Charles, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? All right. Motion does not pass. Motion fails. That is 8. So item number 9 is at 6:46. We're in a public hearing. Consider action regarding a request from development plan and change in zoning, 16.43 acres for H. Robinson Survey. Again, the Avila Saginaw. Rick Trice again.
Thank you, Mayor. We've kind of gone into the development plan, but just to kind of give you some background, the underlying owners is Blue Mountain Partners Limited Partnership. Next Metro, of course, is the developer. The existing zoning is community commercial, and the proposed zoning is planned development, multifamily 1 underlying zoning. So just some of the adjacent land uses, you've got Creekwood residential back to the west of the developments. You've got Blue Mountain Road, which of course is the city limits for the eastern city limits of Saginaw on the east, and Bailey Boswell on the south. So again, if you look at the development plan, of course, like villas, this is one large lot. These are not individual lots, so they're individual units on the lot. The density is below 8 units per acre. MF1 zoning is 16 units per acre, or 18 units per acre, excuse me. And so it is light zoning. There is the development agreement, or the PD will require a 9-foot separation between buildings. Again, 118 units and a density of 7.18 units per acre. Unfortunately, with the development agreement being denied or not approved, the developer has intent to build the architectural standards that's in the development into the PD, which is the 75% masonry, but certainly the city's at risk now for if he decides, or a future other developer, for reasons we've already
So he can do it like at 25% now, right?
He could do whatever he wants to now. So anyway, it is what it is. The applicant does have a presentation just to kind of show you what their product line looks like, and there was one condition that the Planning and Zoning Commission required is that we had Creekwood appeared at the public hearing at Planning and Zoning, and there was an agreement that they would have a dumpster located away from Creekwood. The development plan that's attached in your package shows the dumpster closer to Creekwood. That has been revised, and you have a revised plan that was put at the dais, I believe, that shows the new location. It was being left up to staff to approve that location, but we want to go ahead and put that onus on you. So I think Creekwood, we have a letter from Creekwood supporting the development. The developer has had a lot of things that they've agreed to do for that development, existing development. So I think they're trying to be good neighbors. And with that, I'll I guess introduce Josh Eady, unless you have other questions of me, and he can go through a brief PowerPoint.
Yeah, please come on up. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Do you have a clicker, Keith? Mayor and Council. I am Josh Eady with Next Metro 2221 Lakeside Boulevard, Richardson, Texas 75082. So I mentioned I'm with Next Metro. Together with my colleagues, we handle all of the DFW portfolio for Next Metro. All of our product is Avila Homes. Councilman Junkersfield, I believe you referenced a project on Harmon and Blue Mound on the previous item. That's actually our community, and I'll be able to touch on some of those details here.
That is your community?
Yes, sir. It opened in June of last June or so, so we're into probably, 9 months. We're 96% occupied, so kind of moved through. We're fully stabilized and that sort of thing. And I have some more details that I can share on that community as well. You'll see here on your screen we have 13 projects in the Metroplex. Those are either stabilized and built or under construction. I believe we have 4 or 5 now that have moved out of construction and actually have residents calling them home. You'll see here Avila Fossil Creek is the project I was referencing earlier, which is just to the northeast of the subject property we're talking about now on the hard corner of Bailey Boswell and Blue Mound. Let's see. So all of our homes, all of our communities are the same type of development. They are detached, single-family, for-rent communities. Every unit has 4 separate walls and a private backyard, save for the one-bedroom homes, which are more of a duplex-style structure. These are all on one lot, as been mentioned. They are maintained by a professional property management firm. They can never be sold off individually. It's an all-or-none proposition. We're bound by all of the same fire codes and building codes you'd have in a traditional multifamily complex because of the underlying zoning. There are some communities that utilize single-family zoning. We are not one of those developers. All of our properties are on multifamily style zoning. And we have amenities too, so we always have a pool and a dog park and a similar type of package across all of our communities. So a little bit about the residents who live with us. So we've been around for a little over 10 years, and so in this space, it's quite a long time to iterate on what you're developing and also to survey your residents. So we know a lot about them. We know that over 50% are over the age of 40, about 40% of those are over the age of 50, and out of all of our residents, about 60% are women too. We have 1-bedroom homes, 2-bedroom homes, 3-bedroom homes. Our average household income is around $150,000. Our average individual income is around $120,000. Those are often made up of hospitality workers, nurses, firefighters, the list goes on. We build in suburban locations. We don't really build in urban locations. It's a little bit small to read everything up there. We don't have a lot of children. We have a lot of pets, though. We're very popular with pet owners because of the private backyards and the dog park. Moving on to this actual site, it's about 16 acres. We're proposing 118 homes. The site plan is on the next sheet that I'll be able to walk you through. 36 1-bedroom homes, 47 2-bedroom homes, and 35 3-bedroom homes. All the amenities that I just mentioned. And then the proposed starting rents are here. So $1,563, $2,169, and $2,488. I can say those are very conservative estimates. Our project down the street, Avila Fossil Creek, as of today, is at $1,742, $2,225, and $2,636.
Wow.
Yes, sir. And so those are, obviously, we're in an interesting market right now. Homes are very expensive. Rents are very expensive. We get a premium over typical apartment homes because they really look and feel like a single-family home. They are a better fit for a lot of people who are in an apartment who would like to be in a home, and 50% of our residents are actually coming from a single-family home. In this market, those are people who have sold their forever homes, their 3,000 square foot home, don't want to maintain it, but maybe can't buy a home right now, or maybe they want to buy a lake house or a mountain house or see their kids off to college. So these are all real-world examples of the people who are living with us, and one of the benefits of being in the space as long as we have been. So this is a site plan. As Rick mentioned, this has shifted a little bit. I like to use this one because it really helps you see where the fire lanes are, where the grass space is, the backyards, and the proposed trees. We don't have a landscaping plan. Usually at the zoning phase, you don't have a full landscape plan. That's part of the civil design process, so we will landscape it very heavily. The shaded area there to the north is all flood zone, so we're not proposing any development in the flood zone, that sort of thing. But you'll see here, this is a public fire lane, public fire loops, fire hydrants. All of the homes meet fire minimums, building separations. They're all on hose pull lay. We've worked with, I think that the assistant fire chief, John, really worked with us a lot, John Cook, on making sure that we had good fire and life safety practices on these. So we're going to sprinkle all of these homes, all of our properties, anyone we build are all fire sprinkled. I think this is a 13R system. Rick mentioned one of the conditions for improvement was relocating a dumpster. This is something we agreed to early on in the process, working with Creekwood HOA. You can see here it's kind of spelled out. Red is where it was, green is where it is. So we moved that almost 200 feet to the northeast, so it's not alongside the shared property line. And a little bit on trash collection while we're on that topic, giving the earlier agenda items. So we have a valet service 5 days a week. So the residents have I think it's a 13-gallon kitchen trash can. It goes out front of their door by a certain time at night, comes through the next morning, someone takes that and puts it into their truck vehicle, loads that up, and it leaves the site. It does not go into these dumpsters. These dumpsters are really helpful for maintenance staff, for landscaping, and also during the holidays, people have big bulk items, boxes, those sort of things. They're free to walk down and put it away and don't have to wait for that valet service. So it's kind of a both approach. The valet service is one of the services that we're offering. Really with this product type, it's kind of a lock and leave lifestyle. You don't have to mow your grass in your backyard. You don't have to change your light bulbs. You don't have to plunge your toilets if they get stopped up. You call us. We have 24/7 management. They're on call. And trash is another one of those services.
Hold it.
Sorry.
Just so I can make sure. The day-to-day garbage that comes out of the houses will be picked up and taken off premises. The only thing these dumpsters will be used for is for your maintenance staff and stuff, correct?
Your statement is correct, and then not all wholly correct. So yes, daily household items will be picked up and taken away. The dumpsters are not exclusively not for residents. They are free to use them if they should choose to. But that's not what they're designed for. That's not their intended use.
Okay. So how often do you all get those big dumpsters dumped? And then part two of that question is, what are y'all doing to keep rodents and raccoons and all that stuff out of those dumpsters?
So the servicing of the dumpsters is seasonal. Around the holidays, you're going to pull those every single weekend. In the summertime or in the springtime, somewhere where we're not seeing them fill up, that's probably every other week. But we monitor those. If we see something getting close, we'll call and pull it. And most of all of our other properties, the property management that we have on-site maintenance staff that will go and check. You're not going to have an overflowing dumpster scenario. One, you're not going to have the volume to accrue there, and two, it's going to be actively monitored, which kind of segues with your second question with rodents. So we have landscaping contractors and extermination and rodent and pest contractors. So they're actively spraying just like you would around a single-family home. So all of our homes are sprayed. That enclosure is sprayed. We put a hose bib there so maintenance can spray it down so it doesn't get really nasty. We found that to be the best solution on these sorts of things. It's about a 6-foot tall structure, 20 by 20 square, and they're skinned and bricked with the same materials that go in the home. So they kind of blend into the rest, and you're not going to see a cinder block wall like you would just outside of a commercial.
Well, I'm more worried about rodents. If you've ever dealt with raccoons, yeah, a little spray ain't gonna bother them none.
Yeah, we haven't had any raccoon or larger issues. I'm told there's some coyotes on this tract of land, which we've agreed to try to catch. I'm not sure what we're going to do with them, so we might have to reach out to animal control. But hopefully if we can kind of get all that under control, and lots of times with the construction, that'll kind of scare a lot of things off. So we'll be mindful of that. Haven't encountered that just yet, but valid concern.
You've never messed with raccoons.
I have to get animal control's number for sure. And so with the preceding item, these are the proposed elevations. You can see they're brick and stone, and they tend to match contemporary housing design. These colors are not final. We generally choose colors and bricks that match the neighboring neighborhood, so they'll kind of blend in. We have varied roof pitches, gables. Some of these are craftsman-style homes. A lot of the same features you see on modern-built homes today. All of these, I can share, are at least 80% masonry. Because of the denial of the prior item, we're not bound to have to do that. We intend to, and we're here to work with to see how we can get that to happen. In terms of financial compensation, the $10,000, we don't need that. That was kind of an offering and a precedent that was set. If we could do $1, we would do $1. I'm told that because of the precedent, we can't do that. So if there's another way we can get to the same end result, we're happy to do that. So in each 1, 2, and 3 bedroom home, we have 3 iterations on all of our projects. The one just down the street of Villa Fossil Creek is not brick and stone. It's majority hardy plank, cementatious fiber cement board. We haven't seen a stark difference in building materials. It's more about aesthetics and matching your surroundings. That neighborhood that supported us over there, their houses are a mixture of siding and brick and stone, whereas Creekwood is almost all brick.
Are any of these the duplexes?
Yes, sir. The entire top row are duplex. So that one entryway will have 2 separate doors and a shared patio. These are our Generation 2.0 elevations. We've just finished the architecture on Generation 3.0, where those duplexes will have 2 entry points, distinct patios, and so they're split. Instead of being at the middle, they're on the ends. So if you live in one half, you're not really sharing a patio with your neighbor. That was a decision we made because a lot of the people who live in these homes personalize them with patio furniture, door decorations, Halloween decorations, and to have that own private space is a big upsell for them. In just a little bit, I breezed over it. So the 1-bedroom homes, actually if I back up, I'll give you the square footages. I think it's on this slide. No, it's not on there.
Can you stay on that slide there?
Which one?
No, the other one. That one. So I had 2 questions here. One, can you scroll back down? Somebody
I can't scroll it.
There's you show a path going from here. Now, I'm assuming this is a gated community.
Yes,
I think
sir,
I read that, right? So you show a path going from here over to the other area where there's a big tank, right?
There's a pond or small lake with a path around it.
Yeah. Pond tank. So I talked to someone. I don't know if it was you. I don't remember who.
We spoke.
You spoke, okay. Now, untangle my mind as to what you were talking about with assisting our parks and stuff of building and tying in to our existing trails.
Yes, sir.
And then our council here, how do we make sure that's binding?
Keith, could you help me with scrolling up? I'm not sure if I know how to do it on this thing. There we go. So it's cut off a little bit on this plan, but if I go back to this one, you can see it more
there
clearly.
it is. That's what I'm talking about.
So we are proposing a trail connection. So our property is gated, and it will have a perimeter fence. So there will be a man gate and a lock there so that only residents can kind of get in. It's on fob access. And so we'll have a sidewalk that's going down grade to tie into that. So that circulation around there. And then to the north of that pond is the city of Fort Worth Park.
Right.
So because it's floodplain and because at this stage we haven't gone through civil design, this is all that we can agree will make sense right now from doing work in a floodplain. It's really frowned upon to put any structure in a floodplain. It's going to impede flood study. We actually went down the road and fully studied current conditions and proposed flood conditions to confirm we wouldn't be contributing to flooding conditions along Blue Mountain Road and the TxDOT projects that's there to improve flooding. What we are proposing to do, and that's what we talked about, is we would like to connect that all the way to the corner of Bailey Boswell and Blue Mountain to the light control intersection so that anyone from the south side, that future development there on the corner to the southwest, and the middle school along Bailey Boswell could get to that park system without having to walk on anything but a private sidewalk off the road. So putting it in the floodplain there, because there's grade change, that's going to have a lot longer of a study to understand what your grades are going to be. Usually you can't put retaining walls and that sort of thing there. So we're committed to doing that, and we intend to do that. We just haven't been able to have enough time to design it right now, and it takes a lot longer to get to that point. So we have a letter that I believe is in your packet that I thought detailed that. Let's see. I'm not seeing it in the HOA support letter. They condition their support on a number of items, and I thought that was one of them. We'd be happy to condition any sort of approval on doing that item. We fully intend to do that. We have a number of communities where we've actually put in community trails to tie into existing trail systems. At this day and age, coming out of the pandemic, outdoor space is key for a lot of people in their lifestyle, and so that's a value to our residents as well. It's a fairly inconsequential cost to put in that extra sidewalk.
Okay, so it's just,
It's not shown on this plan yet. That would make it onto an engineered site plan where you have setbacks, and that's one that engineering and city staff would approve. If that's something that we can agree to contingent upon an approval, we would be happy to do that. I'm not sure exactly how to do that.
and my next question, I'm just curious, who owns that floodplain?
We do. We'll have to maintain it.
Okay, you are. Okay. And I would definitely be interested in what y'all plan to enhance, what's going to be done with the floodplains. Is it just going to be left the way it is?
For the most part, it'll be left the way it is, save for any dead trees or brush or something that will get cleared out. It's kind of hard also to landscape and to add trees into a floodplain because of the storage condition. Along that property line, we'll be adding trees and landscaping there to buffer our fence line from any sort of sight lines. But for the most part, it will just be mowed grass, maintained.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
You asked the question, council member, about how to make that happen. Of course, a development agreement would be good.
Yeah.
But short of that, you could enter into a community facilities agreement, which is basically would be their initiation to put up surety to build a sidewalk from point A to point B, and then they would build it as part of their civil package or even later. But they would be bound to build that at some point.
Would that have to be a monetary attached to that?
Not on a community facilities agreement. I mean, it would be, their discretion that they want to build it. It's public infrastructure. It's not private building components. It's public infrastructure, so that would be a different sort of agreement. If you didn't want to include it in just a traditional development agreement, it could be a chapter in a development agreement too.
I mean, if they wasn't scared of the other neighbors, they wouldn't have to have a gated community, and they could just put the walking trail around the edge.
So the idea behind a gated community is really a sense of security for the residents there, regardless of their neighbors. When we do our resident survey, that's one of the things that makes them feel safe, regardless of location. I'll be the first to tell you that putting a gate in doesn't necessarily, it costs us more money. They break down and they get hit, and there's always to bypass it, but it's a sense of security. So we prefer to do it when we can make stacking requirements work. But just and to touch on the CFA, we're happy to do that. We've done community facilities agreements on other projects. If there's a way that we can negotiate that with staff, either now or after the fact, we're happy to do that. While we're on here, you can see the fire lane is kind of clearly shown. You'll notice it's kind of going to be hard for you to read. Our fire radii and our width are in excess of design minimums. It's one of the things we worked with the fire department on. They have 30-foot radius. I believe you have 26-foot fire lanes. All of your parking is head-in, a combination of open carport and garages. You can see the garages are the boxes there. The carports are the spaces with the X's on them, and then the regular spaces are open spaces to the sky, all of which are off-street and out of the fire lane.
So those carports are not attached to the homes?
No, sir. They're freestanding.
Or the driveways of the homes, no?
Well, we don't have any driveways.
Okay.
We have a fire lane and then off-street parking, so there's separation between all of those. Our minimums, so I think previously there were some comments on the development plan. Our standards, which I actually have a copy of, Exhibit B. So all of our minimum setbacks and our building separations, those are minimums. So when we talk about 9 feet, that would be eave to eave 8 feet, but that is not the typical condition. That is a minimum. Most of these buildings are further than 9 feet apart. Some of them are as far as 20 feet apart. And so that will change and that will vary a little bit. But that is part of the Exhibit B in the development standards.
Do any of these homes, and I'll just call them homes in general, do they have any fire suppression in them?
Yes, sir. They have a 13R system.
Well, what I mean is like sprinkler systems.
A 13R is a fire suppression system.
Okay.
Can you explain what a 13R is? Because I don't know.
I'm not an engineer.
I bet the chief can.
Yeah.
13R, if you wanted to do your private residence, your individual home, you could do a 13D sprinkler system. It's a little lower grade, uses PVC. a little less reporting requirements, and you don't have to cover some of the areas. 13R covers all the closets, garage areas, all that's a little more robust sprinkler system like you would have in an apartment building, so we're applying that same standard to this facility.
Does that also suppress fires in the attics?
It does not, no.
Okay.
So the attics are not accessible to residents. The only thing in the attic is air handlers and air distribution. Our tallest roof is about 18 feet, and our interior ceilings are all 10 feet. So you don't have a huge attic area. We do have exhaust fans in the kitchen and that sort of thing. Thankfully, we haven't had any issues with that. In addition to the 13R system, I mentioned earlier, we have a public fire loop and fire hydrants. We meet hose pull A and all those sorts of things. So I do feel good from a fire and life safety perspective that we're designing above the minimum standards, if that helps in any consolation.
Sir, do you know of any city that requires buildings like this to have a sprinkler system in the attic?
I don't know. These are relatively new to the Metroplex. That would be a question better suited for the fire marshal, so I apologize for not being prepared for it. But I doubt very seriously that any of them are sprinkler in the attic, being a residential structure.
I was just wondering if there's any cities that did.
I can add in at least the 13 locations that we have, none of them have fire sprinklers in the attic. The question hasn't come up. Oftentimes, it's been posited, well, a fire would likely start where it's controlled and spread to the attic, or vice versa, and that sort of thing. But I believe we also have horn strobes on some of these too to help with alerting and that sort of thing. Here are some pictures of the site amenities. So you'll see these are the minimum separations as close as they may get. Again, not typical. Some of our resort style pool and seating areas, we don't have a picture of the dog park on here. The bottom middle picture is a typical backyard minimum, 10 feet. On this site plan, our smallest backyards are 10 feet deep. The largest are, I think, a little over 20 feet. That we like to vary those just because some people don't have value in outdoor space and don't want to pay that premium. Others really want a big yard, and to them, the extra premium associated with that yard is freedom for their kids and dogs to play, although it's usually more the dogs than the kids.
What is the first picture? Show me. Is that the front, or what is that?
The top left. So that would be a side yard. So if we go to the site plan, this is easier to see. You can see some of the homes are stacked behind other homes, for example, the western property boundary. So that's what that corridor looks like. There's usually a tree.
Oh, okay.
And so there's building separation in there for a sidewalk. We generally have clusters of 4 to 6 homes as a whole. We don't connect everything through. A lot of people like to have the privacy. They only want to know 1 or 2 neighbors, similar to you would have in a single-family community. We do have larger open spaces by the pool and on the end caps. This is a smaller site, and with a triangle, anyone will tell you it's hard to fit a lot of good stuff in a triangle. It just doesn't lay out that efficiently. So we've tried to incorporate those areas. The dog park to the north, where we have the trail connection, that's where we want a lot of our green space access to go. You have a beautiful natural amenity there in the floodplain, and we want to accentuate that. And then there to the northwest, that is a existing drainage swale where we're not going to propose to put any structures. We'll probably have to regrade it and resod it to make sure we don't have any erosion issues and that sort of thing.
Is that dog park going to be limited to the residents only, or will that be open to the community?
It is private.
City as a whole?
It's private. We spoke about this. So one of the things that I'd like to touch on is the current zoning in place. This is a PD for a zoning change. You have community commercial zoning, which has a max height of 110 feet. So those development constraints result in this circus tent type of massing. On a site like this, commercial zoning, I'm not aware of the city having any restrictions upon self-storage or other commercial uses that would be 20 or 30 feet high, let alone 100 feet. And so that's one of the things that we spoke about when we met with the HOA, is that all of these structures are 1 story. There are no 2-story structures. The peak roof height is 18 feet, and this site is located below grade from the neighbors.
Right.
So if you were sitting in your backyard, you'd be hard-pressed to see very many roof lines. You might see a couple, but you wouldn't see anything towering over your fence line. So just some closing remarks. We've had some success in these projects because we're able to satisfy what's called the missing middle. The missing middle is middle density housing that exists between traditional single-family and multifamily housing. We are nowhere near as dense as traditional multifamily. That's why in some of our development districts standards, you'll see some departures from traditional multifamily. In general, we try to be more restrictive. We don't need to build 3 stories. We don't need to have our buildings spaced out. We try to match the zoning to our product. It is a relatively new product. It doesn't have zoning in place for it today. We feel like we provide balanced zoning for people of all ages and types. We feel like there's a big reduction in what's currently zoned from a traffic generation. We generate about 10% as much traffic as a commercial use, about a third as much as traditional multifamily. That's due to density and density alone. Generally speaking, we have our peak traffic during morning and afternoon, or rush hour. We don't have any other trips throughout the day that would compare to commercial, which has trip generation all day long. Good tax revenue. I mentioned some of the rents that we're achieving earlier. All of those suffice to say, with premium to multifamily, we pay about twice as much tax per square foot as a traditional single-family for-sale home with a smaller home. So we feel good about putting back into the bucket, and we feel good about, especially with regards to schools, only about 15% of our residents have school-aged children. A majority of them are empty nesters with mature kids. A majority of them are young families moving to the area for jobs. And then the rest are people who already live in Saginaw who would have to leave Saginaw if this product type didn't exist. And we've seen the desire for that just down the road in our Fort Worth location on Fossil Creek and the success of that project over the short term. And then, of course, the ability to work with Creekwood. So we met with Creekwood back in October. We were able to meet with them to hear their concerns. They had plenty that we're able to address just through getting up and talking with them. We met with them at the middle school for about 2 hours one night. We ended up materializing with the HOA letter of support. We're trying to be good neighbors. If you would query all of our sites and those neighbors, you'd find similar support letters as well. So that's really the whole presentation. I have some appendix slides for any questions.
Any other questions for this gentleman? Mary?
I have stated before that my reason for being opposed to the project is that single-family residential, whether it is owner-occupied or rental, is not appropriate to be beside a state highway. 2 weeks ago, this body unanimously adopted our 2022 comprehensive plan. And a part of that comprehensive plan is future land use. And of course, as you know, the suggestion was for that to be commercial mixed use. That is an appropriate use for that property, possibly neighborhood mixed use. And single family or industrial would both be bad uses for that property. I have nothing against building the homes for rental at all. If they are placed in an appropriate part of a city, and if they are large enough, if the piece of property is large enough where the homes don't have to be packed together like sardines. I happened to see this article just a few days ago in the paper, rental communities. I know it's all the rage. And there's a single-family project underway in Salina. Well, that particular project, I have to put on my glasses. I think it's 114 acres as opposed to the 16 acres here. 45 acres. And they have a mixture of housing. They're going to have a mixture of housing. Some of these cottages or bungalows or whatever you want to call them for rental, some townhouses, some actual single-family owner-occupied homes. So they have 45 acres, so they have plenty of room for many wonderful amenities. They're going to have 94 townhomes with 3-bedroom floor plans with covered back porches, as well as 22 detached 4-bedroom houses. The townhomes and the single-family homes will include 2-car attached garages. Amenities include a 3,000-square-foot clubhouse, a swimming pool, a fitness center, a dog park, a playground, and more than a mile of trails. And I know that can't be done on that piece of property. That's my point. This type of development should be restricted to a larger tract of land, placed in an appropriate place, not alongside a state highway heavily traveled. And those are my objections.
Council,
and there's nothing
oh,
you can do about that.
sorry.
That's just a difference of opinion.
All right, Council, other questions before we let this gentleman go? Nikki?
Well, I don't know if it's for you or them. So one is, did we have any town halls? I mean, I know that you talked to the HOA right beside of it, but you got Haltom's. You got Highland Station right across the way, and I know that in just the last week, I have had several neighbors come up to me, and because it seems like the word's just getting out. And there are some major concerns around there. One is on the Saginaw side. So you got Saginaw, you got Fort Worth on the other side. There's very little venue over there. And this is one of the last pieces of land there to build. In fact, on the Saginaw side, if you go from there this way in that general area, there's a donut place and a Subway sandwich. Subway, literally. And somebody corrected me, there's a pizza place at Marchio's? Yeah, and that's really it. So I can tell you that, and this ain't scientific because we didn't have a big town hall or I didn't know about it, but every single person this Saturday, and I had a few people weeding through my area this weekend, was absolutely, when they asked about this and what little bit of information you give them, they don't like it. They don't want it. They say we got enough. They want basically what our economic development, all of our things is. They want something on that side of town they can sit down and eat at, things like that. So that's got me concerned that we haven't done enough, at least letting the citizens in those neighborhoods, at least attempt to have a town hall or something like that. Publicize it on the Saginaw Residence page, whatever, and let them, one way or another, speak their mind. I can tell you that the people in Highland Station are still chapped at us. I can say us, but it really wasn't me because I wasn't on council then, that put those apartments in over there, and they didn't know nothing about it till they started getting built. They feel they were snookered, and they got a pretty bad attitude about it, especially get a few beers in them.
But what are our options if the land is already zoned for multifamily and all these different things like the apartments? We don't have any options to do anything different, can we? I'm talking about the apartments.
Yeah, let's keep to this subject. Please. Keep to this item, this subject. So other questions for this gentleman until we let him go sit down? Oh, go ahead.
I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure it's not for you, but about the trash collection services. We have a contract with Waste Connections. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how does that fit in with their trash collection services?
When developers come on board in the city, they contract directly with the trash service. So, that's a transaction that happens outside city government. Even though we allow them as basically a franchise to operate within Saginaw, those agreements are made between the developer and the waste.
Well, again, the reason I'm asking is similar to what Councilmember Lawson brought up is, I want to do some renovation on my house, but I have to rent a dumpster from Waste Connection. I can't get a different dumpster and have my trash hauled away. So they're just kind of curious how all of this tied together.
Well, I just stated what the requirements are. So.
Well, I understand, but like I said, I was asking on behalf of the questions that I was
Sure.
asked by several citizens.
Well, those people, at some point in time, whether they did it individually or they did it as a development, a neighborhood, contracted with trash services. So, once that's part of that contract is that if they want to use a dumpster, they have to provide it through that company. So
I understand.
So they're not bound to that same agreement. I mean, they would have the option if they wanted to contract directly with trash company, but that's not the option that they're choosing.
Yeah, I can just address, usually the most price competitive offering is the person or the group who services that neighborhood or that area, and so we end up going with that group. While Rick pointed out we're free to choose, usually it's a bidding item, and so usually the group is active in that area is the one who's successful. If there was a concern over one company or another, we'd be happy to use a preferred vendor. I'm not sure if we can memorialize that or not.
And let me speak to Councilmember Lawson's point about town hall. I mean, our notices are, they are minimum notices required by law. I mean, this basically is the town hall. This is the public hearing for that zoning change that is advertised again in the legal notices of the Star Telegram. And there are state requirements on how that notice takes place. There's another requirement that has us directly notified by mail notices within 200 feet of the perimeter of the development. So, that doesn't get you all the way over to, Highland Station. I don't know how to respond to that process. Would be a process change in the way that we do business to somehow put that out there to the entire city to comment and what weight that would have. I think we've met the requirements set by the law, and they had an ongoing dialogue early with Creekwood because the Creekwood is their neighbor here in Saginaw, and so and they had a productive relationship with Creekwood at the end of the day. I think that the issue of whether or not you allow single family for rent versus commercial, or that's kind of a citywide sort of issue. And if you want to, I don't know how to address that other than to say that you could consider a moratorium till we get a handle on it. I don't know what that is. Okay, but so zoning is that they look at their land on a case-by-case basis. And I will tell you that even though it's community commercial, in the old ultimate land use plan, the new one is mixed-use community, which also includes residential as one of the uses that's in the 2022 comp plan. So it doesn't have restaurants, et cetera, but it does have a park, even though that park is a dog park and it's only restricted to residents of the PD. That site has issues with access, which is another good reason to maybe consider this, is that the frontage along 156 will always have that 100-year floodplain. It's basically the creek is a Little Fossil Creek, which runs right down the boulevard of FM 156. And if you go out there today, you'll see probably 10 to 12 10-by-10 box culverts that are under construction to cross that roadway. That level of protection that would be provided after that improvement, that drainage improvement is done, is still a 2-year protection. It's not anywhere near what the national standard for development is for a 100-year protection, which is a very rare flood event. It's still going to flood on a frequent basis, so access from 156 is severely hindered, and of course, a commercial development would rely heavily on that access. That's where all the traffic is. A lot of traffic on Bailey Boswell too, but you basically cut half your access off. The other complication is that Bailey Boswell is a median roadway, and so that will require, and there will be median cuts for this development, but the type of median cuts and storage required to serve a commercial development would be inadequate. And also, so basically what you're looking at is a right in, right out. So, to go westbound on Bailey Boswell from Blue Mountain Road, you can enter this development by a right turn, and if you leave it, you're going to have to take a right turn and go west. There's going east is kind of hindered. And so I guess those are, the property, we've had several people interested in commercial development over the years, and those were the reasons really that those projects died. It's not a viable site for a lot of commercial development. Not saying there's not anything out there that might work on that site, but I'm just saying we haven't seen it. So,
All right, other questions for this guy? I want to let you sit down, but other questions before we let him sit down? Anything else, council? All right.
The only other
Yes.
slide that I had in the appendix, I can show you some commercial uses that go on smaller tracts of land. And so these are single-family communities. I don't know if you can zoom in on any one of those pictures, but all of these have commercial zoning that allow for self-storage immediately behind those homes. And that's about a 30-foot self-storage facility on those two projects. And the bottom picture has a similar one. But that was one of the selling points on this use being low-rise as opposed to a higher height commercial site on a smaller piece of land. So just wanted to provide that for reference.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
So Mayor, I got two major concerns here that I'm not going to be able to resolve today. One is I don't know about floodplains, and I need to go read up on that. I need to get Rick or somebody to educate me on that. Okay, need to do a lot of research. In order, the Corps engineer, whoever I do, I'll tell you right now, I don't know anything about it, but boy, on this one it matters because I want to understand what can and cannot be done, and then I also want to understand that path through there. It means a lot to me. And then the second thing, I really want the citizens, all the citizens, to be able to understand this. And I know we did it strictly by the law, absolutely, cross T's, dot I's. But it wouldn't hurt to put it out there on the Saginaw residency page, open it up, have a couple open forums. If nobody shows up, at least we can check a box and say we literally did everything we can to get it. I just know that somehow in the latter part of the week, all of a sudden, some of us started getting lots of calls over this. So for that reason, I would really like to see this tabled for a month to give us time to do that research and to give chances for the city to put together a couple town halls and the builder or the developer come in and answer those questions so that I don't know about the rest of the council, can get a true feel of what the rest of the citizens around that area. Nikki, who are we going to have a town hall meeting with?
Well, we would come there.
What residents are you referring to?
Well, a big bunch of them is the ones right around Highland Station, so because they go to that area and stuff, and they got nothing to eat, and I just want to make sure they've got a voice. Like I say, they've already gotten the okay from, and I don't know how you did this. How'd you get the blessing of an HOA?
We've actually got a person here that wants to speak, and I think they're from the HOA, so that's on my list too before we go too much further.
I read the thing.
Somebody want to speak?
So yeah, so I got a request. This is a public hearing, you don't have to request, but I'll let them go first. So Priska Kirk.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm not a very good public speaker, but anyway. I'm the president of the Creekwood HOA. I've been on the HOA board for over a decade now, and we have seen multiple people interested in that piece of land. The problem with the piece of land is it's really a weird shape. You can't really access it from Blue Mount. So whomever is interested, once they do some research and they see the dollar amounts it costs for them to create a bridge to access from Blue Mount, they're gone. So now, because it's a floodplain, they have to have some kind of good access. Now, what this means is that whatever is on that piece of land will go high up. The higher it goes, the worse it is for the homeowners right next to it. And while Creekwood is really big, we have to really consider the people who are right next to the land. And when we originally were approached with the idea of this, our initial thought was, oh, hell no. We don't want that. We don't want to have more apartments. We don't want to have any of that stuff. We like it as it is. And that's how everybody is. You know, it's been really open. It's been free. We liked it the way it was. You know, we liked the land around us. Unfortunately, that's, you know, it's going to go away. Things are going to have to be developed. So once we started talking with Josh and Next Metro, they explained to us it's the same as next to Chisholm Ridge. Now, we get along with Chisholm Ridge HOA a lot. We talk to them a lot. And our first question was, Chisholm, how is this developer? Has he followed through with what he promised to do? And the answer was, yes, he's good people. So, okay, that's good for us. Now, we looked at what they had up there, and we really, really did not like the look of it. We told Josh, we said, absolutely not. It needs to be brick. It needs to be masonry. We want stone brick. We don't want hardy plank right next to us. We don't want to have a gap between our wall and their fence because it's a fenced-in property. We don't want to have like a 3-foot little corridor where people could hide in, where you could have snakes and who knows what, because you can't maintain it really. So we have had lots of discussions with that. He promised that they would build into our wall, so it's going to be a totally connecting wall. It will match how Creekwood looks. He also promised to put trees and landscaping in the front, like it is along Creekwood, because we have all those trees and some beds and stuff like that. It's also going to be a gated community. The other issue that we had there immediately was the dumpster. We don't want to have a dumpster close to our property line, clearly. That was not a non-issue. He immediately said, no, that's not a problem, we can fix that. Our biggest concern with keeping it commercial is really that there's going to be parking, so you're going to have parking lights. That's going to be light pollution coming from the top that our homeowners right there will see. Dumpsters will have to be put towards the back. We can't just push them towards Bluemount necessarily, because it's depending on what kind of businesses are going to be in there and where parking will have to be. There's going to be noise. There's going to be, dumpster clearing. There's going to be deliveries at 4 in the morning. There's going to be just a lot of things that it may or may not happen. I mean, it's a big question mark. So for us as an HOA board, we decided, you know what, this is something we can support. So what we did is we sent out a notice to all our residents. We had an open house, like an open house where all the residents could go to and ask questions. Out of 737 homes, we had maybe 20 people participate. A lot of them were homeowners who lived right along that area. And there were questions. They answered the questions. We came to resolutions, and we worked it out. And for us, this seems to be the best solution for our homeowners who are in that area. So I think that's pretty much. Yes, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it, ma'am. All right, so this is a public hearing. It is open. Anyone to speak, you don't have to fill out a form. If you would like to speak, please approach. Come on. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Mischke, 8152 Timberfall Trail in Creekwood. And I wanted to say that I'm looking forward to it. I'm all for this. My husband and I are knocking on the age of 70s. So we want to stay in a home, but we don't want to maintain it. We don't want to do the outside anymore. We don't want to have to take care. And this is the perfect solution. We can come in. I get to go move back to Saginaw. I used to live in Saginaw. And it's wonderful. We don't want commercial. We don't want the crime that comes with commercial. No matter how hard you try, you can go down the street, you can go to any of these shopping centers. None of them are full. What happens? People come in, and it's only going to be harder on your police department to maintain this area. With this gated community, your crime rate's lower because nobody's going to be able to get in and out as much as they do with commercial. We don't want the 4 a.m. dumpsters being dumped and cleared and trash everywhere and the lights and who knows? I mean, you've got those, I don't know, how tall are those, 30 feet light? But we don't want it. We want this community because it's going to be quiet. They're going to put the trees up. It's going to be yes. Is it close to Blue Mound Road? No, not as close as the apartment complex is because we've got that area that's the flood zones. So yes, we are looking forward to this because it is a community. It is a quiet community. And that's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We're still on it. Come on. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Gay C. My address is 1425 White Ash Street. My property is the 7th house from Bailey Boswell. Now when I walk out on my deck and my patio, I see an open field, the creek, wildlife, and the pond. I have mixed emotions about this. Do I want it to stay like that? I would like for it to, but I know progress. So I'm so glad that Josh, when I saw where the dumpster was located, was right behind my fence. So when I walked out on my deck, I would see the dumpster. I wasn't aware that it was not going to be the residents that would be dumping things in there at all hours. My question is, what's going to be able to be put in the dumpster? But I'm thankful that they did move it to the other side. There is wildlife out there. There is a pack of 7 coyotes that live down in the creek. We hear them all the time. They have had deer pinned against the back of our fence at one time. We've seen raccoons, possums, all kinds of wildlife. So I do have mixed emotions. All I can say is, if that was your property, what would you like to see when you walk out on your patio and deck? I have looked at the complex down Harmon Road and Blue Mound. I've gone in and looked at it. They're very nice. As far as the rental prices, they're very expensive. So I would think they would have, they have certain criteria for their residences. So I think the commercial aspect of it, having a retail commercial go in there and restaurants or Walmart or grocery stores would not be a good thing. I think that these little houses would probably be the best thing. So that's my opinion, and I hope y'all would think about this, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a Planet Fitness behind my house. Go figure.
That means you work out all the time, right, Charles?
My wife just got a membership today.
All right, I expect you to be swole by summer, all right? Okay. All right, anybody else? We're still in a public hearing. Anyone else can approach and speak? Anybody else would like to? All right. Council, before I take us out of a public hearing, any other questions that council has for staff? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment that we're being told that commercial is not viable there. So if commercial is not viable there, then the property owners have nothing to worry about. And so often neighborhoods they're frightened into accepting something that they don't really want because they're afraid something worse will come in. And so we're even being told it's not viable for commercial. So if that's true, it can be open space. And someday maybe there will come a plan, for example, a small restaurant and some office buildings, like 2 small office buildings, something like that. Or it may never be developed because nobody can, find the appropriate thing. If you'll bear with me just a minute, I know I've taken up a lot of time at this meeting, but I did run across another article that was interesting. And it's just an example to show how when certain properties are being advertised as, oh, this can't be developed, you might be surprised how, thinking out of the box, what can happen. And before I read this article, I used to live in a home in another city in Tarrant County. I lived there for 29 years, and there was some vacant property. I actually lived on the corner. There was a vacant lot, and my house was next to the vacant lot. And the vacant lot then wound around for a portion on the perpendicular street. And one time someone wanted to build an actual apartment building right there next to my house. And that particular city council said no, thank goodness. And we kept asking, well, why can't you just build homes there? And we were told, well, that can't be done. This configuration won't support that. You know, and sure enough, before I moved out of there, 4 or 5 beautiful homes were built there. And they actually made my property values go up. So don't just blindly accept these statements. And so if we're being told that commercial can't be done, well, if that's true, then the homeowners will have that beautiful open space to look at. But this was interesting to me. This particular owner of this property, he says, I've been working on this property for 5 years, and I think I've had the land under contract 3 times. And he's been trying to find a way to develop. It's only 10 acres. It's only 10 acres. So there is a trendy restaurant in the Dallas area, and this is going to be in Allen, and they're going to build this nice restaurant and 2 office buildings in that 10-acre space. And they're actually going to, the restaurant site is sunken from the highway traffic lanes, so you won't get the noise. So my reason for bringing that up is just to say that you might be surprised what can be done. And we shouldn't just blindly accept these statements. This can't be done, so therefore this must be done. And our job up here is not to find a way to develop a piece of property. Our job up here is just to look at each request individually and determine whether or not that's appropriate for that piece of property. Without regard to, oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? We just need to look at it as what is being presented. Do we think that's appropriate for that particular piece of property?
I just have one comment, if I could, to that. I didn't mean to leave the impression that commercial development is not viable on that lot. Anything can happen, like as you say. I'm just saying that lot has challenges that make it unattractive for that sort of development.
All right, council, any other questions before I take us out of a public hearing? Oh, yes.
I'm like Nick, and I guess that's the fallacies of being data people. I'm glad that we're separated for that reason. I'm too concerned about the floodplains, knowing the history of this intersection with floodwaters. We've got people looking at the development, the Levon White properties, and what's going to happen when they build up this property. What is the floodwaters going to do as it drains down toward that area? So I'm like Nick. I'd like to look at that a little bit more before.
I can respond to that. The city looks at downstream impacts from development to see if there's any impact directly to Fossil Creek. If you're familiar with that area, Little Fossil Creek basically parallels Blue Mountain Road at that location, but once it hits the Bailey Boswell intersection, it turns back to the east and starts headed toward Fort Worth and eventually through Haltom City until it finally reconnects with the Trinity. So anything that happens, good or bad, on this development with regard to Fossil Creek or Little Fossil Creek has 0 impact on what happens on the Levon White tract. Those are 2 separate watersheds, and so they're not, one doesn't impact the other.
I think part of your point is the work on 156 is going to impact the watershed much more than this project would.
The work on 156 improved the frequency of flooding on Blue Mountain, or will improve the frequency. It will lessen the frequency, but it will still be a very frequent flood event. I mean, it will still overtop the roadway. They raised the roadway, I believe, 2 feet at that location, and it will still overtop on a frequent basis. So that's as the Creekwood resident mentioned, it would really require a substantial bridge, and we really don't want to build another one in Saginaw, but that's a joke.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So, and the state, I mean, if you go out and look at what they're doing, it's impressive, but it's not enough. I mean, it's a big flood issue there that won't be solved.
Well, I mean, we still have a lot of flooding problems on Saginaw Boulevard because of what the state did.
That's correct. Again, cities, it's part of the requirement to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. You have to adopt a 100-year frequency flood protection, which is a flood that happens or gets exceeded 1% of the time. I mean, that's the probability. It's a 1% probability in any given year of being met or exceeded. So that's a 100-year frequency. So that's a very infrequent event. Again, 1% probability.
Yeah,
that's a 2-year protection. I mean, it will be a flood event that will overtop on average more than once a year, as opposed to once every 100 years statistically. So, I mean, that's the difference. And as far as floodplain, this development is adjacent to that floodplain. Again, we have floodplain development ordinance in place. Our requirement is to have finished floors and grading 2 feet above the ultimate floodplain. If you look on the development plan, you will see a line, dashed line, which is the ultimate development floodplain. That's a floodplain that's developed when the entire watershed has developed and you have the most amount of discharge that you're going to get off that watershed into that creek. So it's a conservative value, and so their subdivision will meet that standard of being 2 feet above that ultimate 100-year floodplain elevation. And that's been looked at by Kimley Horn, and they've signed off on that about as far as downstream impacts and also whether or not the development would be protected from flooding. Now, again, what the state's doing and what's going on Blue Mountain Road is totally unrelated to this development in terms of the impact by this development.
All right, council, we've gone through this a lot. So any other questions before I take us out of public hearing?
I was just going to ask if we could get together with TxDOT, the council, and talk to them and ask questions.
We could. I mean, that's
About
that's sort of a separate issue, though. But that's a separate issue. But yes. All right. Any other questions, council? Then at 7:52, take us out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, again, I move that this be tabled for 1 month to allow us to talk to other citizens and to understand the floodplains and stuff.
I'll second that.
I second that. All right. All those in favor of tabling for a month? Do you want to say a month, or do you want to say just until we find this information out? Do you want? All right. Can you restate your motion then, please, sir?
Mike's on. Mayor, I move that we table this until we get a final resolution.
Okay.
And I'll second it again.
Cindy, second. All those in favor of tabling for X amount of time, raise your right hand. All right. All those opposed? Thank you, ma'am. All right. We're tabled. That's item 9. Item 10, consider action regarding resolution 2022-07, adopting a fiscal year 2022 work plan. For that, City Manager Gabe Graham.
Mayor and Council, this is the third time brought this topic to your attention here for your action. I just have 2 minor changes that came up since the time we last discussed. Number 1 would be we talked with Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD about a cultural event. They don't have the staff capability to commit to one in 2022. So I believe we should consider a cultural event. It may just be planning for an event in 2023, or there was an idea that came to have cultural diversity be a focus of the Train and Grain Festival, which I think, as you know, many of the people, or if not all the people in here, Train and Grain planning is kind of a year-round event. So happy to throw that out there for consideration. And the only other change would be instead of the feral cat pilot program, recommendation was made to just make that study a feral cat program. There's a number of considerations for each of these projects. I mean, about any of these projects or all of them will end up being workshop discussion items. And with that, staff recommends approval.
Council, any questions on the work plan?
I want to table the work plan just based off of everything that was in this document, in this PowerPoint. I think there are some other things that might need to get added.
Okay.
So
once
we review this.
Would you want to do that? Do you want to approve the work plan as is and then revise it later? Or what do you think?
Okay, we can do that.
No, my point is, we've talked to the work plan several times. I'd love to get it approved now, to get something in writing now. It's March, something in writing, and then we can come back and amend it whenever we want.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Do you, any other questions on the details of the work plan before we move forward?
I do.
Yeah, Cindy, go ahead.
At our last council meeting, we had asked Gabe to provide us some details about this, to put together some sort of schedule, when this expected to happen, what the cost was going to be, a little bit of a description. We did request that of him at the last meeting, and I did not see that. I thought perhaps he would have a presentation available for us today. I had also sent a request in to Gabe, adding a couple of items of my own, and I'd like to see those added at the council's direction. First is we had a Meet the City Employees event when Gabe first hired on. I thought it would be great to repeat that again, and that's probably something that we could add to the training grain if we don't want to keep making more and more events throughout the year. And the second item that I had requested, because I noticed that he did not reply back to the entire council, but just to those that I had put on the email distribution, is when I first came on board, what really helped me a lot in the budget process was that, I'm, like I said, I came in August, so I don't know what had happened before, but I would like to have that August workshop recap where we get a chance to talk to the directors and find out what they need or if anything has changed while we have those little bits of information throughout the year. It's also, it would also help the new council members that may be coming in to catch up with what had been going on, and I think that needs to be a council decision rather than Gabe just I can't remember exactly how he stated it in his email, but basically he said, well, we're discussing it throughout the year.
Well, I mean, last year we didn't have that because we discussed it at the council if we needed it, and we decided we did not. That was my recollection. And we have had it in the past. We've had it lots of times in the past, the budget workshop in August. But we decided last year, since we had started early throughout the year, that we didn't need that. So that was a council decision.
For that year.
For that year, right. A year-by-year basis, sure.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, thank you for bringing those points up. To your point, I think we can accomplish some of the desires you expressed in the email. So the thought was to have, we did the show and tell in 2018. The reason I know this is Vicki will attest. I go to the rec center and I run during the week, and that's one of my workout shirts. So it's blue. It gets dark blue when I get really sweaty and gross. So Vicki never makes fun of me. Thank you for that. We can add in those booths because I think we're all here to inform and educate in some form or fashion to train and grain, and that was my recommendation to you. The other thought was something the mayor just touched on. We do more, I would say, thoughtful discussion about budget planning than maybe any city around. We start 6 months early. That's by design, so we can talk about these things. The council chose last year to not hold the workshop. If y'all want to have the workshop on a Saturday to recap, we can. It's just been our past practice, which starting tonight we'll talk about that. So, I'm happy to do whatever you'd like. And
could we not do it on the years that we have new members to help them out?
That's y'all's decision.
We can do it on a year-by-year basis, really, whatever we want.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's needs to be a work plan level item.
I don't see that as a work plan function. I think that's a decision in June that y'all say, hey, we want to have a recap, and we'll have a submit a proposed budget and like we normally do.
Well, again, one of my concerns is that, you've repeatedly said that you dispel information to all the council members, but I noticed that did not go to the entire council. That request.
I'm happy, whatever the council as a body tonight would like. I'm here to accommodate.
Right. but I would like to see the work plan tabled until you provide the information that we requested from you at the last meeting.
So again, if that's the pleasure of the council, I'm in a tough spot because I need you to commit to the projects. We can go through again as we did last time and sort of talk about the schedule. Happy to do that. It's a little bit of chicken or the egg. Talked about the mayor talked with the mayor about how we report, through the year. I think that we can include summary reports in our monthly reports. Some of these projects may not have minute by minute or hour by hour, day by day movement, but happy to update and inform. So, really, you tell us the projects, we'll get you a schedule and go from there. So
this is really step one.
It really is, and
to get this approved officially from the council, because we've talked about it, but the council's not approved it yet. So until the council's approved it, we really have not given official guidance to the staff until we approve this plan.
And I would say, too, to Councilmember Beasley's point, we can amend things at a later date in the future. I think we need to be realistic in what we can reasonably accomplish through calendar 2022. We sure want to do everything that is out there, but there's a reasonableness test, and we can add projects in the future if necessary. So, thanks.
All right, council, other questions?
So can you, what was the first thing you wanted to have, a cultural?
No, I had talked about a Meet the City Day.
Oh, a Meet the City
I think is what we had talked about. That's what we had done Gabe's first year here, and it was highly successful. And the citizens loved it. They understood more about where our dollars were going and why those dollars were being used.
Was that in 2018? Is that when we did?
Yeah, it was. It was in, and probably some folks were here. It was a lot of fun. We had terrible weather. If you remember, it was downpour.
Pouring down rain.
But you could set that up. That wouldn't be hard.
Well, I think we can do it, and I think it would make sense to tie that into Training Grain because that's our biggest event of the year.
Have that as part of it to meet the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the hands-on, so the fire department is there selling corn dogs. I think PD had a booth. Is that correct at Training Grain?
They had a booth, the back of the blue.
Or CPA had a booth. So I see your request as being very easy to accommodate within the Training Grain Festival, which is our biggest event of the year.
It's our huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so do we want to add that to the work plan? You meet the city elements of Training Grain. Is that the best way to phrase it?
With Training Grain, that would go to Pedro. Where's he at? Right there.
Well, but just as part of the work plan, do we want to put that? Do we want to add that on the work plan tonight and put that as a?
I think we should.
Why not?
Okay. Yeah, we can. We can do whatever we want.
Be an easy.
Yeah, it's easily accomplished. So just to be clear, it's informational. Yeah, and we'll report back to you. So I will say,
Pedro.
Janice didn't retire yet. Hearing about Training Grain, but we do have to. Everybody loves Training Grain, myself included. We got to be careful about what we can commit. So I think we can workshop and come back to you and say we have X amount of booths and go from there. But yeah, very easily. Look forward to it.
All right, so this work plan plus the one is we talked about, approve that tonight and then come back later with some ideas from Mr. Beasley?
Yes.
Is that good? That makes sense?
Yep.
You work with that?
Yep.
Any other questions, council? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the work plan as we presented, add in the extras. Gabe wrote them down, or Janice did one, and go forward.
Mr. Charlie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gabe. Item number 11, workshop discussion regarding aquatic and summer camp hiring and program. For that, Vicki Weldon. You're finally up, Vicki. Thanks for being patient with us.
Oh, thanks for letting me sit down for a while.
She's excited. It's okay.
I am excited.
Yes, you have a right to be.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting me present this. I should have my co-worker, Recreation Services Supervisor Jason England, but he's unable to be here tonight. His daughter is ill. I will say a couple of weeks ago, he babysat the pool as the new plaster had to be filled, and it was his birthday.
Yes.
And he spent that evening well into the wee hours of the morning
like
watching the
2:00.
water to make sure that it
What's
was.
his title?
Pardon me?
What was his title?
Recreation Services Supervisor.
So rumor had it there was an alligator in that pool. Did y'all catch it?
We've got ducks and bunnies. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So a lot of good things have happened since I last spoke to you. We've got new doors. If you drive by, they're a beautiful blue. We've got the new artwork in the kids area. The train is going to be arriving back next week, all freshly painted. The plaster is done. Water is in the pool. It's chemically balanced with a current water temperature of 52 degrees. So
What
we're
happened
on,
to the heater?
Pardon me?
Didn't we have a heater?
Man, it is cold to be working in that pool. Our hands get numb right now. So we did have the job fair. So we're on track with the workings of the pool. Pump 1 is working. That was a relief. Sand filter seems to be okay. Maybe a little bit of compromise, but we're looking at that. So each step of the way, we knew what we were dealing with. But we've got a lot behind us. What we've got before us is to try to get that staff. We can have the beautiful pool. It's going to look nice. It's going to be gorgeous. But without a staff, they're going to be looking at it from behind the bars because it won't be safe to open. So part of that, what I'm here for, is to see if we can get salary increases for our summer camp staff and our pool staff. And these are seasonal jobs. Both of these bring in money. The summer camp, I'm hoping that we can get an increase from the $120 weekly fee to $150. We have not gone up on that weekly fee, and that puts us right in competition with other week-long daycares. We do 5 to 11 is our age. We're open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have a staff that we've been approved of in the past of 14 counselors. So 1 director and then maybe an assistant director that if they're not there, they step in, and then the counselors that take care of the kids. So
that'll be 12 counselors?
I would like to see this year a director, a lead 1 counselor, lead 2 counselor, and then...
No assistant?
No assistant. The lead 2 counselor would be the assistant. And who we have in mind for that is a 5-year returning counselor. So it's a lot of dedication in this staff.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Why would you have a price differentiation between your lead counselors?
Experience.
Okay.
And I think the lead counselor 1 would be more of a floater to allow the counselors to have a break. We don't allow them to use cell phones, even to have their cell phones. And for that age group, they just need time to, take a breath and get a break from the kids. So that lead counselor 1's job would be to go make sure that all counselors had time away to use their phone. So these are the prices that we're looking at for 2022.
It's up on the screen, please. It's in our packet, but I'd like...
Oh, wow.
I think these 2 should go up right here.
Okay, see on the left under salaries for the Camp Kids Are Awesome, I've mentioned the weekly fee increase from $120 to $150. I would like to eliminate drop-ins. We've went through COVID and post-COVID years with the camp, never being shut down because of COVID, which I think has been a remarkable achievement. But now this year, we don't have as many parents that are working from home. Last year, we wanted to accommodate that of the parents' work schedules. So having drop-in days at $30 a day allowed the parents to choose, 1 or 2 days. If we do full weeks, then we guarantee that those who have paid the registration money are going to be there for $150. And it really did cut into what we made to do the $30 drop-in. So by increasing that to no drop-ins at $150, I'd like to see we're going to keep the registration fee at $50 until May 1st. Then after that, it would go up to $75 per child. I'd like to have a late fee of $10 a day if the payment's not received by Monday at 6 p.m.
Have you ever had that late fee?
No.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That should be higher, and the reason being is because a lot of people will say, oh, it's just $10. That's not gonna hurt me.
Not even $10 a day, you think?
I'd go up to $25 a day.
How many?
Have
How
you,
much?
have you worked in this area?
For a little while,
How
yeah.
much you do?
Mine's 30.
Wow.
And you always get paid by Friday at 6 p.m.
Okay.
And your drop-in fees, I mean, if you're gonna just charge $150 a week, you could still do a drop-in day pass for like $50 or $75 and they'll do it. Some parents get tired of their kids for one day a week. They would pay that $50 or $75 to have them come up there. I'm just telling you. If you have the room, it just depends on if you have the room.
Yeah,
If you
this
have the
would
room.
be easier if we knew how many kids were coming each week instead of drop-in days. And I guarantee you, those drop-in days would be aquatic days.
Yes,
So
they usually are. That's
I
why I
think
said
that's-
go up. If you're going to do a drop-in, make sure it's way higher than $30
yeah.
a day.
I think for this year, I'd like to see no drop-in and see how that goes because coming out of COVID for this year is time for us to redefine. I mean, we've had 2 years to step back, so now we can make some changes that we've not been able to do before and try some things new, think outside the box. So we can always go up, but I do appreciate you giving more money on that levy. Okay. All right, so those are the things that I'd like to change just as far as the camp, so we can get those camp packets out, let the parents know how much it is. We've been getting a lot of calls, and I think the $150 is going to put us right in range with other programs.
And we're going to raise that late fee to 25.
I'd go to 20, 25,
25?
30.
I'm good with that.
25.
25, do I have 30?
Yeah, you have to make it where they want to pay, and they're not going to want to pay at $10. They'll say, oh, it's just $10, you know, so I can pay that $10 to play all weekend.
Yeah, that's how it's getting with attendant fees for the rentals of our building for $100.
Well, there you go. You need to do
I
the
mean,
same thing on that
they
too.
walk away and it's not worth them to clean up the building
Yeah.
for $100.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
and I like Valerie's idea of having them pay by Friday, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
rather than on Monday.
It's going to help my front desk staff as well, so that we're not trying to process so many payments on Monday as the parents are trying to get to work. We'd like it the week before, and it's going to make it easier on everybody as we take their money. All right, so now we look at the
Or maybe even
salaries.
2 p.m. on Saturday, or whenever it is that you close on Saturday.
We close at 1 p.m. on Saturday.
1 p.m. on Saturday, okay.
And-
But have them pay before they start.
We could do that. That $25 is going to be a good incentive, that late fee.
That's right.
All right. So now we're at the salary increases for the camp. We looked at pay ranges of 25-mile radius. And instead of saying city to city, because these kids drive, and for kids, they like to drive their car. So we're not in competition with cities our size necessarily. It's what's around us. So the 25-mile radius, the counselors average 11 to 1597.
The counselors did?
Counselors. Lead counselor, get this, 1141 to 1597. This is accurate stuff here. And director, $15 to $18. So I would like to see the director 18 to 25. This our assistant director is taking the director's spot, so we could start at 18 and then give rewards for returning, for coming back. Lead counselor 14.
That should be 15.
Lead counselor
I
number
agree.
2.
I think that should be 15.
That should be 15.
Oh, y'all are doing good with me today. Thank you. 15.
Lead and
Well-
lead counselor 1 should be 14, and counselor should go up from 10 to 11 to 13.
Yeah, it actually should be 11 to, yeah.
Counselor should start at 11.
11 to 13.
Counselors, I agree. That's a hard working. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I like those numbers. All right, let's go. The Aquatic Center. I have it.
So with this, what the numbers we just talked about, you are confident you can get the resources now to run this baby?
I am, because we're going to open it up for 75 registration. I think we can handle 100, even with the senior center taking up 2 of the rooms right now. It worked well. Last year was, our test. We have the library that comes and does their summer reading program on Wednesdays. There's a lot of shifting of bodies, and we made it work last year, and I'm pretty confident we can do it again. So if we have the 14 staff, the 14 number, I think we can go up beyond 75. 100 is where I would stop it,
Yeah.
but we're going to start at 75 and make sure we have the staff for that. Yes.
You know, a lot of daycares aren't taking school kids.
Yes, I think these are good ideas, and you may have mentioned this and I missed it, but do we assume that the fee increases will pay for the salary increases, or will we still need to have some help with
They should, and that's one thing that Jason had worked on so diligently, and he did some numbers, and see if I can get the right information for you. Because he went to 2021.
Vicki, Jason shared those numbers with me, and it's me.
Oh,
so the break-even point at these salaries is 50, and average was 63 last year.
Yes, an
so
average of 63.
they'll more than be able to cover with the $150 fee.
And did you?
50, yes.
Did you say how many kids you were going to put in here, or did I miss it?
75 is what I'm going to start out with open
75, sorry,
registration, but we
75.
can raise it up as we
Yeah.
see the need and make sure that I've got the staff.
So the
we're kinda-
minimum is 75, so that's our goal, to get 75,
Right.
so to say.
Mhm.
And we'll top out at 100.
Right, and 63 was our average, but part of that average last year was day passes at $30 and then the weekly fee. So we really couldn't get a real accurate number of an average.
Have you ever had a waiting list?
Hmm?
Do you have a waiting list?
We did last year, and we turned people away.
Okay.
Because those day passes had paid a registration, and we never knew when they were going to come. So that's another reason.
Oh, they paid
Well, you need
they
to set a
paid that
time on that.
registration.
Hmm?
They paid the registration fee, and then they paid the day pass fee?
Mhm, yes, everybody pays
But on the ones
registration.
that pay a registration, if they don't show up in 2 weeks, you need to cut it off and say, nope, sorry, you'll have to re-register if you don't bring your kids. Because then you're
We
holding that
offer the-
$75 for how many?
Right, we are going to do that for the,
Okay.
the weekly fee, that if we don't hear from you in 2 weeks, your space
You're
has
done.
been
Okay.
done. So the waiting list, we will be able to,
And how many kids do you normally have on your waiting list?
last year we
ballpark.
had about 12 or 13, and by the time we were 8, we saw that the day passes were not coming as much. Those parents had found other, you know.
You may have a little more this year, though, because some daycares aren't taking a lot of school kids.
We have gotten a lot of calls, and I told them that, you know, it was going to go before council, and that the packets would be out after that once we got the approval. I didn't tell them we were raising prices.
Doesn't
But
matter. Everything else went up. It's okay, go ahead.
it did, it did.
Keep going to Aquatic Center, Vicki. Let's go.
Are we ready to go to the Aquatic Center?
Yes.
All right, let's go to the Aquatic Center. Hang on. Lost my page. Okay, I'll just look at that one. I've got it, this is just my idea to open it up on Monday, May the 30th, because of Boswell's graduation. A lot of our lifeguards are local, so to open it on a Saturday and graduation weekend,
Why
I'd
would
like
you
to
want
see it just open on Monday, because in the past opening day, we hit 500 people. It is a full house, and we need a full staff. We can't open it partially. So opening May the 30th, Monday, May the 30th, and going through September 5th, 2022, we'd open 7 days a week. Through the first part of August, by mid-August, we always have to go to weekends only, because we lose guards for college, we lose guards for school. So that's the goal. Pool hours Sunday through Thursday, 12 to 6 p.m., and that's to allow for swim lessons and water aerobics. We're going to allow an hour for the deck to be emptied before it's opened up for the swim lessons or water aerobics. It's just a safety issue.
I do have a question about that. Are y'all going to do in-house swimming lessons, or y'all?
No, we've signed the contract with Off the Deep End, who has done the swim lessons in the past. In the future, that is something definitely that would be a money-making venture for the city to do them.
Okay.
But this year, we're going to go with Off the Deep End Aquatics, and they're going to run them. I did get them to take their evening classes off of Friday so that we can stay open later for the residents. I think that after 2 years of not having that pool open, we need to, we need to give the residents more pool. So if we stay open Friday and Saturday until 8 p.m. I don't have pool rentals here just because right now I have 4 lifeguards that have applied. 4 lifeguards. I don't think that we can do the after-hour rentals. I don't want to commit to that and take people's money and they're going to have their birthday party at the pool and then find out that we don't have enough staff to support that, because safety-wise, that's full lifeguards. You can't just swim at your own risk with the city being liable, and it's on city property. So I don't have after-hour rentals for this year. But this is part of the thing of, changing and growing. This year's great, next year's better, and going and forth. We have to start somewhere.
Pre-COVID, how many rentals did we get?
I don't have that number, but I will get it for you. I can get you that number. It was large. Yeah. And probably in 2018 was more than 2019. I remember in 2019 it went down. I don't know why, but it did. We can rent the pavilion. There's 2 pavilions that's covered. There's a blue one, and it has 9 tables, and the green one has 4. I would like just to rent out the 4-tabled one and leave those other picnic tables that are covered for the citizens that can be used at any time. If you rent it out, they're off limits, and if we make both of those off limits, we're putting everybody in the sun, except for an umbrella. So again, we're taking away rental money this year. But I think what we want to do is we want people to be able to enjoy the pool. We want people to come and just have a time. That's what I said, rent out the small pavilion, 12 to 2:30, 3 to 5:30. $40 for residents is my suggestion. $80 for non-residents. I like to do double. That's what we do for renting out the building at the community center. It's $40 and $85. We don't do that at the recreation center. I'd like that changed someday, but not today.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Talking about rentals, you're saying rental includes up to 25 guests at the resident rate.
Yes.
If it is a non-resident,
they're still getting 25.
They're still getting?
Yeah, and they're paying $80.
But they will be paying
how long?
80.
Huh?
They'll be paying 80 for that if it's
they
a
would
non-resident.
be paying $80 to sit at those 4 tables for 2.5 hours.
Oh,
Then they could
2.5
have
hours.
25 people come in for $5. And then number 26, if they're a resident, they get $5. So if I was renting the pool, I would put all my non-residents as the first 25, and then everybody else is going to get in for $5 anyway. But, I'm proposing.
Wait, I didn't get that. So the $40,
That's a
covers the first 25 people for the party?
No. You're going to pay $40, and you're going to have 4 picnic tables to do whatever you want. If your guests up to 25 can pay $5 to come in, and that's from 2 to 100. Even if they don't swim, they've got to pay. So I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
We're giving them come in, but if they've got more than 25, they're going to pay whatever rate they are. We're proposing to add a $10 snack pass, and that's so that they can buy this pass with their credit card at the front gate. We don't take credit cards at the snack shack, and that turned away so many people being able to buy. So if, as they enter, they could buy this snack pass for $10, and we would just use a punch method for every dollar that they spend. You could also buy these up for your kids and not send cash or credit card to use at the snack shack. So it's going to increase what we sell at the snack shack.
So that's cash.
And how much is
though?
the items at the?
I'm sorry. That's the they still got to pay cash for that.
No, they can charge that snack pass at the front gate, because we do accept credit cards at the front gate. Visa and MasterCard only.
Okay.
All right.
No American Express.
We took one at the rec center the other night, and I was like, man. So yeah, we can.
How much are your snacks?
They are
Average.
$1 for candy bars, $1 for chips. There's everything in increments of
$1.
ones. Yeah. And everything is prepackaged. We don't serve food because we don't go through health department. We just hand it out. So it's bottled water, bottled sodas, chips, snacks, and some things.
Okay, so the drinks inside the rec center are $1.75, correct?
I don't know, I don't buy them, they're too expensive.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a big difference between, you know, the prices inside the rec center and then at the aquatic center.
Yeah, but the rec center, we are in contract with Coca-Cola, so,
Okay.
you know, we don't have anything to do with the machines. We do get a little revenue off of the sales of that, but, you know, for the pool, I want to try to make it as affordable as we can, and we're still allowing food to be brought in. If you've got a big family, that's the best way to go. And memberships, I'm changing my mind on this one. I said membership sales for the aquatic center will be on hold until we have adequate staffing to operate for the whole season. We had a mother come in with 3 small children. She's a resident. And I said, we may not do memberships this year because we may not be able to stay open the whole year. And she looked at me and she said, you mean it would be $25 a time for me to come at $5 each? And I said, wow, you're making me think about this. So I think we should do the membership sales for the residents. Maybe not for the non-residents. Maybe just offer that as a perk for living in Saginaw and giving that. And if we have to close early, we'll deal with whatever we have to as far as prorating.
Well, when you buy a membership, you can't always say, you're going to get this membership for, unless you're going to specify 52.5 weeks a year or whatever.
We've never specified a
Okay,
length
if you
on
don't
those memberships,
specify,
and we've never had a problem. So if we stay open until mid-August, we're not going to have a problem with that.
No.
But I do think we need to make this as affordable as we can for our residents. I'm not talking about sticking it to anybody else, but they're the ones that have waited 2 years for this pool to open, and we need to reward that. So I don't think we should go up on any of the rates.
So how much is it?
How much is a membership fee?
$5 for residents, $10 for, I'm talking about the entrance,
fees. Oh, okay.
and $10 non-resident. Not sure on the membership. Would
What
you
was the
believe?
membership pre-COVID?
She's not sure.
I'm not sure.
You don't remember?
That was 2 years ago. It's been a long 2 years.
Does
I want to know
anybody
that.
remember?
Huh?
I said I want to know that. When you dig it up at a later date.
But if we don't go up, they'll seem cheap after 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Different rates of membership?
Yeah, let's keep going, Vicki. You're doing
Okay.
great.
Membership sales stays the same. And next page.
Well,
No
what
further
do you-
increases?
What do you recommend the membership sale be?
I would just do what it was in 2019. We could reduce it if you wanted to make it, if they have to prove residency and we're doing it for the residents, I'm good for even making it less to make these families, encourage them to use that pool every day, because that's what it's going to be. So we could even look at going down on those.
Yeah, because they haven't had anything in 2 years.
I know. I mean,
So, yeah.
Do you know what that price is for the
I
membership?
don't
No.
have that membership price. I'm sorry. I will get that, but I don't have it right now.
You get that to us later and let us know.
All right. No further increase. Current salaries for customer service in 2019 and 2020, I think. Anyway, it was $8 an hour. I'd like to see that 9 to 11. Again, I looked at 25-mile radius because that's what I think is the most effective. For lifeguard, we did pay $9. I'd like to see that 12 to 14.
Can I ask, what is the customer service? Is that, they going to work the snack thing or?
They work the snack, they enter the front gate, they check the coolers for glass and alcohol and work on top of the slide. So they're working in the heat too. They just don't need that training of a lifeguard. So lifeguard, $12 to $14 an hour, head lifeguard 15 to 17, and pool manager 17 to $20 an hour is what I'd like to see. Did search within 25 miles. The job fair, we really do need to raise these prices. I have 4 lifeguards and I have 3 customer service. And that's not enough to open the pool for one day.
you do.
How many lifeguards do you have to run in a day?
We had 30 in 2018, 30 lifeguards and 8 customer service.
And how many do you work a day?
On the shifts, there's 2 shifts in a day. There's 8 stations. Pool manager. I would say we would have to have 15 for a day.
Per day?
They rotate in and out.
You just,
After a certain amount of time, they rotate in, go off stand to kind of recover from the sun.
Yeah, and they're working in the Texas heat, so you've really got to keep them moving and keep them out of the sun.
Well, that's why I was wondering why we shouldn't raise the lifeguard a little bit
We
so
have
they
to
would
raise
be
it.
interested in
We need to
coming.
raise it.
Yeah.
The lifeguard, I think the lifeguards, $15, because we need to get the pool open, and if we're not being competitive, I say the lifeguard is 15, you can keep that head lifeguard at 17, and I'm not sure about the pool manager.
Well, I'd like to see, the lifeguard with that salary range. If they're first-time lifeguard, we'll start them out at 12, and then if they've got experience, 14.
You said you did the analysis,
Yes.
right? So to me, all I need to know from you is exactly what do I have to pay these people to ensure that I've got lifeguards so our citizens can swim in their pool.
Well,
What was the average you came up with in your 25 miles?
12, for 25 miles, lifeguard 1271 to 1527.
so why don't you cut that in half and make it $13 or $14 starting it out? Yeah.
15, you're
I mean,
paying-
12 to 14 is good. 12 to
Yeah.
14 is reasonable.
Yeah.
That's why she's
So what do you,
proposing that.
what are you thinking for
What is
lifeguard?
12 to 14
Lifeguard
is,
for 14.
12 to 14 is good.
Um,
That sounds reasonable.
The manager, 17 to 20,
Yeah.
was the radius.
Can you
This
tell
is
me
for 3
what-
months.
Can you tell me what the difference between the manager and Dave?
David?
Because I read what
Okay,
Dave was,
so
and I agree
I would
with
like
all
David
that.
to be the pool manager as
Oh,
well.
okay.
I would like him to be CPO certified,
Yeah.
so that means he can run the chemicals.
Right.
I would like him to be over the pump room, because that's my job right now, and I'm at the rec center. But I don't want a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds dealing with what I deal.
Right.
I'm trained with the CPO certification, but they're not, and I can't teach them that. And I wouldn't want my daughter to work there.
Are we helping Dave get that certification, or is he doing it on his own?
So,
Yes, yeah, I
Ma-
think we are helping Dave get the certification, and he will be able to certify our lifeguards.
I like
So
that.
not only are you going to give them a raise, we're going to be able to advertise, we will train you in our pool. And not only will the guy training you be training you in our pool, he's going to be over you. He's going to know what to expect of you. He's going to set a new standard that we've never had at that pool, an adult there all the time. We've got a whole new staff of very young adults and that have never done this before at our pool.
So you've sold me on Dave. I just need to know how much you're going to have to pay Dave to get him in the pool.
15, what is it, 17 to
So-
$20?
Well,
It's kind of a-
17
no.
to 20.
No,
Real-
Dave
real-
is going to be, CPO certified. He's going to be lifeguard certified. He's going to be your pool manager. He's
Okay.
going to be kind of taking care of the whole pool and this staff of young
Gotcha.
people, keeping them safe.
Real-
So,
real quick
Who's
comment.
going to
Have one
place when
pool
he's
manager.
off duty?
pardon me?
Who's
Quick
going to
comment
take his
on-
place when he's off duty?
It would be, we would still have a head lifeguard. And if he had to leave, and he lives right across, where did he say he lived?
It,
No, he lives
it-
right across
so
Old
it
Decatur
doesn't
Road.
matter.
He lives, okay, but he's close.
Yeah.
So he's
Fine.
right, he's going to be here.
Mayor and council, I'll just summarize this. Vicky's done a great job. Mr. Hunter is our best chance to open the pool for a very simple reason. We will hire him with your approval concurrence as a full-time but temporary employee, lock, stock, and barrel. He's going to run the pool, as Vicky mentioned. He will also take applicants off the street and certify them to be lifeguards. So we have proven in the current market we cannot attract certified lifeguards. I don't want to set any expectation for anybody here watching or you that we can guarantee the pool is going to be open. I think we can guarantee a training opportunity for somebody who's qualified and hope we get applicants, take off the street and get them
I
certified.
just have one question about the full-time, part-time thing. Who's going to take care of the pool in September, October, November, December, and all that, and keep it up?
If
Oh, you
in
are?
September, if this ends in September, and you said, thanks, David, thanks for giving us the best first year, we'll take it from here, then it comes back to me.
Okay.
And this is hard. I've been brushing the pool. Jason's been helping me. We've been out there every day brushing that pool because that's part of what we have to do to keep the plaster under warranty. We have to do that right
What
now.
I'm asking is
It's
can
bad.
you, is there not a way that you can maybe figure out a way that you can do like school teachers, spread his pay out over a 12-month period, and he won't be there all day? Or I'm just asking because I don't know how this works, so.
Or maybe we could just hire him.
I mean, we have open positions for the rec.
Yeah.
Probably
maybe we do it like
been
this,
there.
like Vicky suggests his first year and see how it goes, and if we want to expand his role next
Well,
year.
I think he will prove his worth.
Yeah.
And by September, when we look in August, the council will be able to look at and say, wow, this is the direction we need to go.
Yeah.
We need an aquatic supervisor, and during the off-season, he's still going to take care of the pool, but we can use him for events and for our busy season at the rec center. So it's not like he's going to sit there and twiddle his thumbs, because I don't pay people to do nothing.
Keith, you have a comment?
Yes, with all due respect to all of our pool managers that we've had before, we advertise every year for a pool manager, and it's our hope that we get an adult. I worked for another community where I managed 3 different pools, and we had a pool manager. He was actually an assistant principal at Bell High School, and he ran a tight ship. And those kids, those lifeguards, staff, the public, they listened to him. Here, because we have to hire the best possible person that we have that applied for that position, and we've had peers managing peers, and which is not as easy as it may sound or not sound, but having an adult in that position would be an outstanding addition to our program.
We all need to make it to where they want to do it and come back. That's what we need to do.
What's his confidence level that we can get the lifeguards needed to open the pool May 30th?
Very high. If he's able to train and we're able to get these kids here, that's part of it. They have to drive over 50 miles to get certified. That's where all of the certification is, and it's a 2-day thing that they have to drive there. So if we said, that could be a reluctancy for the people applying.
Especially
and
with
if we
the price
say,
of gas,
we can do this.
price of gas.
So can we advertise this in the schools and everything and get this thing going so that we get our lifeguards?
Pardon me?
Can we advertise it in the schools and everything?
I think we need another job fair just for the lifeguards.
Well, I mean,
and
get something in all these high schools with all these kids and get them off the street.
get some excitement.
Tarrant
because-
County College as well.
Yeah.
And I would like to see, with this pay increase, we're not taking the bottom of the barrel that nobody else wants. I'm not taking what NRH said no to. We're able to choose, and by next year, we're going to be able to pick who we want.
There you go.
And that's what I'd like to see.
So
If my
we
kids
pass
are
this-
full, I don't want.
If we pass this today, what are you going to do to lock Mr. Hunter in?
Call them on the way home.
There you go.
So we'll run it through the city attorney's office and get it. I think it'd be an employment agreement by contract. Is that correct? Or will we hire him as a full-time?
For a full-time, for a time frame, then he would just be like a regular employee and do the background and make sure he's good, and then we would offer him the job at that time.
Of course, we're asking him to do something that really doesn't fit in a lot of job descriptions, so she's going to have to kind of make our own job description for him. We're cutting edge
Is
here.
that benefit?
And so what you're saying is David's going to be the pool manager, so
Since
what are
he's
you
pool-
going to start him at?
I don't know. Melanie's looking
So
at
it's-
what we're asking him to do and what cities pays, because he's going to be doing a variety of jobs.
Okay.
All right, so I think we've got guidance. I think the council is 100% behind you.
Yes.
I think everybody's good to go with this. We want to get the pool open, so go forth and make it happen, Vicki.
Do what you got to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the
Thank
details.
you.
We appreciate all the information, too.
Appreciate it.
Remember that, Ray.
You're amazing, Vicki.
Yes.
No. Awesome. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Keith, as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, too. HR.
All right. Item number 12, fiscal year 2022-23 budget workshop.
Mayor and council, it's getting late, so we're going to go through this pretty quickly. Again, this is an introductory workshop. We talk about this every council meeting. It'll be a recurring theme for the next several months. The intent is to educate and inform you before we get into decision time in the summer. So I will, each department head is going to go over some of the things that were in these slides. These were part of the packet, so you may have had a chance to review them. They're also out publicly, and with that, I'll give it over to Kim Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'll just briefly go over this. We'll, as Gabe mentioned, we'll talk about it more in depth as the spring and summer go by. As Gabe's mentioned in multiple communications with you, that a high priority will be compensation to make sure that we can retain as many of our employees as we can and attract new employees. It's just a difficult job market, and so that will be a high priority.
So is that above the that $500 thing we was talking about? Is that
That's the last. We included that as the last slide. We'll get to that.
Okay.
The retention. So just to add some color, if you'll recall, in the fall, we had a discussion about future positions as we grow, open up new facilities. We, at some point in the future, the demand for services will be such that we need more people. I think everybody kind of acknowledges that. The reality is the labor market is so difficult that even if we had new budgeted positions, I couldn't reasonably commit to you that they could be filled. That may be the same for, your places of employment. It is just tremendously difficult. I believe that we need to focus and recognize the employees that we have first and maintain their competitiveness. We also, as you may be aware, and in the next couple months, we'll have better numbers. We're looking at health insurance cost increases that are going to be substantial. We may have to change plans. We may have to add past costs to employees, but they can't bear all of that. Otherwise, it's a pay cut. So these are all factors that are moving around that we've got to think about.
We also will have a tax rate impact on the debt side. This will be the year that we're going to sell $23.7 million for the construction of the library and senior center. When we went over that plan, we talked about that. So we'll have better numbers to exactly how much of the tax rate will be increased once we start getting our values from TAD. We'll get our first set of values in April. But we know that there'll be a significant increase on the debt side. The original estimate,
you said?
The original estimate was about $32. So, a year.
A year.
Mm-hmm. And then the last thing that we're going to have to deal with in administration is our finance system, our ERP system. Our current provider, STW, was bought out by OpenGov, and by September 30th, 2024, STW will no longer be available. We'll have to either convert to OpenGov or go with another provider. So that's something that we're going to have to start working on.
Have you started looking into that yet?
Have we what?
Have you started looking into that?
Just briefly. Just briefly. So those are the general topics for administration. We'll move on to the other departments.
All right, so the police department has 9 items on the budget list here. Real quickly on the first one is police vehicles. So with the chip shortage that we've experienced throughout this past year, our current vehicles, 4 that we ordered for this current fiscal year, have not even been built yet. So we're still waiting on those. I have those on the list because we have 3 cars that should be due if we continue our replacement cycle for next year. We could end up seeing all 7 cars in 1 year because the cars we've ordered now may not even be delivered until November, so after this fiscal year. So the budgetary constraints that would take place there.
But those cars are already paid for, or
they are
budgeted
not.
for.
They are not paid for. They are
They're
budgeted for. They are budgeted for. We don't pay for them until we receive them.
Right.
And so, that's our anticipation for next year is possibly an increase of 11% overall, and that's not equipment. So we're looking at roughly 58. Yeah.
I was going to say, so we're keeping the cars longer. So I'm just assuming then that our maintenance per month of keeping these cars longer is going to go up.
So we maintain cars in our fleet for 10 years. And when they exit the fleet, they're sitting around 130, 140,000 miles. Right. Maintenance is pretty heavy on them, mainly because of the railroad tracks. Railroad tracks are pretty hard on everything inside the car.
On one side.
On one end of town.
One end of town.
So, I guess what I was asking is, there's nothing we can do about keeping them longer right now if the chips are still stuck in China. So
we can keep them longer. Our cost will go up for maintenance.
Will go up. That's what I was saying. So we'll calculate. Have you all looked at what you think that might cost?
I don't have any of those numbers here in front of me. I can get with the garage and see what he's seeing on an average increase right now. Our newest units are actually costing us money as far as brakes. Apparently, with some of the shortages that took place with supply, manufacturers went with a cheaper brake pad or rotor or something. But you can hear us squealing, 10 miles out. So, and that's the brand new cars. Yeah. So, also on your list is the Tarrant County College contract. This is a contract we entered into. This will be our 3rd renewal for it. This is range services. When we closed the city range due to residential development in and around our range, we had to have a place to do our farms training. We approached Tarrant County College, which they have an indoor range. We do pay every 3 years the $22,500 for a 3-year contract. When I wrote this up, we didn't know what those costs would be. I have received an invoice from them, so there's no increase in cost for the next 3 years. So it's the $22,500 still.
And that's every police officer, Saginaw police officer is going there for a range.
Yeah, that gives us, it's 11 or 12 range dates to get in and train. So our SWAT team trains. We go in and train, and then anytime someone buys a personal rifle for carry on patrol, it gives us a range date to go in and do that as well. But most of those dates are taken up by the SWAT team doing their every other month training, and then PD officers take up the rest of it. On the next slide, you have the RMS CAD. We started on this about 2 years ago. I brought that to your attention. Estimated the cost would probably be around $1 million, $1.2 million. The numbers actually look a whole lot better now that we've actually talked to some folks and got some round numbers in. We had talked to Lake Worth about partnering with them with a product that's owned by Motorola. It used to be a Spillman product. It's a CAD and RMS system. If we hosted through Lake Worth, our costs are sitting around $375,000 for basic setup and get operational, with a $40,000 a year maintenance cost, which is a 12-month cost. Really, the only downside to partnering with another agency is if next year they say, hey, you know what, we're going to go with a different system, then we're out and looking for something new again. If we were to incorporate this system all on our own, with our own servers and all, you're looking at about $500,000, plus the $40,000 a year maintenance on that. That's us supplying servers, so that the servers are not in that cost. Getting with our IT folks, they're telling me probably $25,000 or so is what we're looking at servers. Servers would be ours. We own them. We wouldn't have to worry about anybody else. We don't have to mess with anybody else. Spillman also offers a package where they will provide the servers and all the equipment, and that's $750,000. So we're under the $1 million range that we estimated that we'd be at, but that's kind of the ballpark of what we're looking at, depending on which route we go.
And if we go with our own servers, we have to realize we would have to hire an IT guy. There's no way.
It would be our recommendation that we hire a service to actually take care of that for us. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty big job.
Yes,
Yes,
it is. So can you, how do you feel about the Lake Worth? I mean, partnering with Lake Worth?
We've actually had pretty good relations with Lake Worth. I don't anticipate that they would up and move away from the system, but if the system didn't meet their needs with their growth, that would be an option for them. There's nothing that indicates that to us in talking with them, that they're a willing partner. They're willing to partner with us on this to keep our costs down. They have the server capacity currently to bring us on board without any additional cost to them. There would be a cost sharing or maintenance sharing that we would pay with them. They do use an outside IT contractor, so I'm sure there would be some pass-on cost to us for that to help set up, and we'd still have the $40,000 a year maintenance cost that's to Spillman. That's a cost to the manufacturers. So
how old's their system? That'll explain a lot right there.
So Lake Worth implemented their system about 1.5 years ago.
So they ain't going nowhere anytime.
Yeah, so they're brand new into it. At least that's my understanding. Maybe 2 years, 2.5 years, but I understand it's been just here recently. So
the risk of them going to a new system, they just spent that much money, is pretty slim.
I would think it would be slim. Yeah, most certainly.
Chief, one of the things I think I remembered from CPA class is that you were not able to customize the current system that you have now, like reports or the database and things like that. Would you have that flexibility with this new software?
So that's one of the benefits of this software, is the analytics side of it is quite robust. It allows a lot of personalization for the agency. Talking with Lake Worth, they've created their own reports. They're pulling information. They pull the same report twice. They get the same information twice. That's not what we get. We pull reports out of our current system, and we get, if you pull it 3 times, you'll get 3 different numbers. Had really no rhyme or reason as to why that would be in the same report. But Lake Worth does They talk highly of the system. Their dispatchers seem to like it. Their records clerks like it. Their officers seem to like it. It's a fairly user-friendly system. Once you get to know it, so there's going to be the learning curve going from one system to the other. But once they you completed that learning curve, everybody seems to be enjoying it, at least to some degree. So.
And would that cover all departments inside the PD?
I'm sorry?
Would that cover all your departments inside the PD, records, dispatch?
Yes, it's a robust system. It would take care of everything. RMS side would be our records management system, which would be our reporting. Has a jail module with it and things, and then it's got the CAD side for dispatch to be able to dispatch and handle calls that way. It's got quite a few features that we don't have now that would require a third-party vendor in order to get those services with what we have now. So it'd be included in this one system.
You're a good salesman.
I don't know about that.
So, some information, I think I know Motorola has about 80 to 85% of the market share out there in public safety. So that tells you.
For radios, yes.
Yeah. And I don't know for sure, but I'm trying to remember, this is P25 compliant.
It would be, yes. P25 really is radio interoperability, so it doesn't play really into the CAD RMS system, but this system is fully compatible with everything that's out there now as far as radio use and SIP screens and things. So the next item on the list is a building security system. So this is specifically our security cameras around the PD. Had a camera go out recently on one of the gates. No one can see who's coming in the gate and dispatch to verify if they need to raise it or not. Called the service vendor in to repair it. Cameras aren't available anymore. It's an antiquated analog system. It's not digital. They're recommending an upgrade to that to a cloud-based Wi-Fi system. They were able to take two cameras, old cameras, rebuild a camera to put it back in place. And next camera goes out, it's just going to be a black image on the screen after that. So. Yeah. And so trying to tie something back into building security. So we have cameras in the hallways, in the jail, Sallyport, outside. We'd look at incorporating a few additional cameras as well, since the front PD parking lot is not currently surveilled, and it is used as a safe trading location for children, for parents that are separated, and also for Facebook sales.
Any idea how much this cost?
I'm sorry?
The ballpark figure on how much this was going to cost?
So no one will give me a ballpark cost without coming out and spending a couple hours with me. And we just found this out prior to the request for this information, and so we've not been able to get anybody in to talk to us yet. I will come back and talk to you. The next slide you have is body-worn camera mobile video. So we talked a little bit about this in a prior meeting. So our L3 system is at end of life. Again, we have budgeted for a server for it. The downside that we have been told now is that the upgrade to the server is not backward compatible to our equipment, so we'd have to replace all the equipment in order to have the new server. They will not maintain the firmware on the server anymore, so once it goes down, we lose all the video that's required by law, body-worn camera video that's required by law for us to maintain. So that's what this option is here. Now, this system, if we were to upgrade with Axon, Axon is the maker of Taser. They have a decent market share, if you will, of devices in law enforcement. They offer a package deal. It's a Taser, it's a body-worn camera as a package unit price. Keep the cost low. They offer the mobile videos. They also offer the recording software for our interview rooms. That cost right now, depending on how much we want them to do or not do, is looking at about $375,000 to $400,000 over a 5-year period. It's an annual cost of about $75,000 to $80,000. That is something that would need to be moved on relatively quick. I mean, something that I've already talked to Gabe about trying to implement pieces of this current year with the server fees and stuff that we'd already budgeted. The next you see is Tarrant County 911 grants. The best I can tell, we're not losing anything yet. but they are reallocating these funds. So what we get through the Tarrant County 911 grant is an $18,000 grant that goes towards radio assistance, which is the fees we pay to the city of Fort Worth. And then we get a PSAP assistant, which is $8,400, and that's to help replace things within the PSAP or dispatch center. And so they sent out a letter just advising us that, hey, there's going to be some reallocations. We're going to look at doing things a little differently. So some programs could go away. Some programs may not be funded. We don't know what that will entail at this point, but just wanted to make you aware of it, that we may lose some of that funding. The next slide you'll have is going to be our personnel slide. So as we spoke back towards the end of summer, actually just a couple months ago, I guess, personnel for policing, we had indicated that we had 6 positions that we really needed to maintain our current call load. The school has indicated that they plan on being fully functional with their police department come beginning of the school year. So we'd get our 3 officers back from SROs potentially. There is some talk that they may need 1 or 2 of those still to help backfill their positions. Until we really see where they're at, it's hard to say. Currently, though, I do have 4 positions that are vacant. I have 3 that I anticipate will be vacant over the next month or 2. And so that'll have us with a vacancy of 7. Just so you're aware of that. So we had the vacancies. We're not finding any currently certified personnel. We're sending everybody to the academy. All applicants, 100% of the applicants.
Do we have any in the academy now?
So I have 1 that's in the academy that is unsponsored right now. The academy staff has called us and told us, hey, this is a really squared away guy, so we're in talks with him, trying to get him to do an application and process him through so we can actually sponsor him and be his agency. Other than that, we don't have anybody else in the academy. We don't have anybody set for the academy.
I'm assuming other departments, other cities are doing the same thing we are.
I guess.
So we're in competition with them.
I'll tell you, the one that's in the academy now, he had 3 other agencies courting him. Now, most of those were, hey, when you get out, come talk to us. We were able to get in and say, hey, if you're willing to do an application with us now, we'll hire you like we've done the others as a PSO, reduce pay, get you through the academy, and then you become our employee. And so he seems to be pretty favorable towards that. And you get to go to the academy. So.
On these 3 police officers that's currently working in the city says they'll have, what's the chances of the school scarfing your 3 police officers? I mean, if I was in their shape, I would be trying my best to offer them.
I think there's been some of that. The chief for the schools, police department, he's from Fort Worth, previously from Fort Worth, so I think he has a lot of Fort Worth guys that are preparing for retirement and looking at this as being a kind of a side gig after retirement. I have 1 that may entertain that. The other 2 have indicated that they're going to stay with us. They don't have any desire to work for the school. And even the 3rd one hasn't expressed any real desire to go work for them, but I think that he, just from what I'm seeing on the outside, might be entertaining that. So. The other side of personnel was dispatch, so we were approved the 2 positions. The good news is I hired 1 dispatcher that started today. She is completely inexperienced, but starting the training program. We have been approached by a dispatcher in another city that lives here in town and is looking to come to work for us, so we fast-tracked her as well, trying to get her hired in. And then I have a 3rd dispatcher that is completely unexperienced as well, but is on our list, ranked number 2, so we are moving forward with trying to hire her as well.
So you have 2 unexperienced and 1 experienced potentials.
Yes. The hardship there is the 2 unexperienced. You're looking at 5 months before they're standalone, going through the training program, so they'll be a while out. And a pretty good strain on our staff to train them. You having just the 4 full-time dispatchers trying to rotate these girls through and get them trained up. But really positive news there. What you see on the slide here is a request for the 8th dispatcher, which would give us 2 on console at any given time. We kind of have an idea with this position, if it were granted, is to make it kind of a dispatch / fill-in records / crime victims liaison. The position specifically, we have somebody in mind for. She was one of our dispatchers that currently works part-time. She's in an intern program now for victims assistance type of work to get her degree in. Our victims assistance coordinator right now is a volunteer. His hours have slowly been dropping off the last year or so. So I would imagine what we'll see is him probably doing even less time in the future and possibly even stop and volunteer altogether. He's been with us for a long time, been a great asset, but I think it's just getting to the point where he may be ready to be home, and if we could have somebody that's already trained in this and take over that role. So that's kind of that 8th dispatch position. The last thing that I have on the slide is a Metallics system. So this is the fingerprint system that's in the jail. Every person that gets arrested, this is how we fingerprint them. It runs them through the national database so we can validate who they are. If they tell me I'm Jimmy Smith and doesn't have any ID, run his fingerprints, I can find out who he is. This same system also submits the fingerprints at the county and state level so that the case files are already ready to go. We call it TRNs. So the TRN's already submitted through the system as part of the case. We'll get a call from the DA's office if we fail to file a case in a timely manner saying, hey, you got this TRN out here, you need to do something with the case. That's kind of how that system works. We obtained this system on a grant years ago. Kay Granger, I think, was the one who allocated those funds through the state for the grant, but it has also entered its end-of-life phase. The upgrades to it are roughly $14,000 to get to where we are today, and if we wanted to add any functionality to it, then it would be the increase up to $23,000. There's a couple of different modules you can add to it. We don't currently anticipate adding any modules. It'd be the $14,000, but again, as we start talking to the vendor about what those actual modules are and get a better idea, that recommendation may change.
Is that yearly or a one-time cost?
Those are one-time costs. We own the machines. It'd be an upgrade until the next upgrade's due. So there is an annual maintenance on this as well that runs about $4,800 that we budget currently and pay every year. So that's an ongoing cost as well that's outside of this.
What's usually the life expectancy of these systems?
So the live scan, it's actually been pretty good. I think it's going on 7 or 8 years. Since it's used in the jail just for arrestees, I mean, it's not like it's used 24/7 or any kind of great burden placed on it, but it has some delicate components, such as the printers and the scanners that are replaced more often as part of that maintenance agreement. But the hardware and firmware aspect of this, it doesn't change just a whole lot. They maintain it pretty simply. It's everything the police department has. So.
Is that a self-contained item, or is it hooked to Wi-Fi and stuff, where you'd have to, say, upgrade an OS every time?
So it is a standalone item. It does have internet access, hard cable access. It's in a ruggedized cabinet, so an inmate can't go berserk and tear everything up, that type of deal. But it is hardwired into the internet so it can transfer its data back and forth to the state.
Mayor and council, I'll be extremely brief. Our slide's meant to be self-explanatory. First item is a continuation of a request that began in 2015. It's for a shift firefighter to get us closer to a recommended staffing standard. Since 2015, we've added a shift firefighter to 2 shifts. We have 1 shift that's working shorter than the other 3. That would solve that problem. We have a fire engine that's in desperate need of replacement. Our life expected, it's at its end of life. We're using a 20-year lifespan. Most departments our size and our workload are doing that at 15 years. Proud to say we can extend that to 20 years. But we have one that's at the end of life. It's a 24-month turnaround now, so it's imperative that we would order that thing this year in order to get it when we need it. The one we have now is becoming very unreliable. It's our single reserve for both fire stations. So it's something that we desperately need to replace. Next one is our rescue tools. Most of the equipment in the fire service has a life cycle. Most of those run in 10 and 20-year increments. Our rescue tools are 20 years. They're 2001 models, so we're a little bit beyond 20 years. We're seeking to replace 2 sets of those. Those are our primary tools on our 2 primary apparatus. Records management system, there's been a lot in the fire service records management cannibalization of all the companies. And in doing so, they're raising the prices extremely high. So we're having to select a different records management company than what we currently use. We've tried to find one that meets our economy and can still meet our needs. And that's what this reflects. We're going to have to change companies Station 2 security system. In the previous couple of years, we've been able to extend our rear fence around the fire station to add that security for our staff in the actual facility. The last component of that is adding the gate to the front part of that, an entrance gate. That's what this request is for. I'll answer any questions that you have.
If I order a fire truck today, do I have to pay for it today, or can I pay for it in 12 months, 24 months? How does that work?
All kinds of payment options. They make it really attractive to pay for it up front. There's some substantial savings. We've taken advantage of those in the past, somewhere close to $40,000 if you pay it up front. But there is all kinds of payment terms for fire apparatus.
And what you say? What you say?
To me, it would be a better deal to pay get a big discount at the front of it instead of paying, I don't like to pay interest or anything.
Agree.
That $950,000 cost is at the higher end. They're currently experiencing about a 14% increase. Much like everything else, the cost is kind of a shot in the dark. So I've included the maximum, or hopefully be below that. But I don't want to come back and have to ask for more money at some point. I want to set the expectation where it needs to be. At the point of its life now, it would be very minimal. We've used it to the extreme.
Thank you, Chief.
Library.
Ellen?
Mine's pretty short. The first part is staffing. This is the first part of the multi-year plan that I showed y'all last fall to get us up to full staff for the new building. So these are the positions that I've identified for this year. These are people that we can use now in our current building, but will get us to where we need to be when we move. So that's 2 full-time and 1 part-time. And these, I just want to say, in the library, we're not having as much trouble hiring people as other departments. You know, you can make whatever, draw whatever conclusions you want to, but people want to work in the library, you know? So I don't feel like we would have a problem filling these positions, and 2 of them are positions that I would promote current staff into. So that's the staffing side, and then the other piece is technology. In order to, again, get ready for our move, we need to move to an RFID tag system on all our items. That is, I don't want to take a lot of time to explain it, but basically it's a security tag that's inside of each book or movie or whatever. It allows that to work with the new book drop that we'll have in the new building, where you just actually feed your book in and it checks it in right then. You don't have to have a person to do it, it does it automatically. It also works with self-checkout stations, with inventory. It's a personnel saver, and it just kind of brings the library up to date technologically. So, any questions?
So was that part of, this new RFID tagging, was that built into the budget for the new building?
The tags are not.
The
Some of the
software or
technology may be, just depending
Okay.
on how the budget goes, as far as like the pieces that are built into the building, like the book drop. But we're still working with the different consultants.
And I guess we don't need to know the salaries, because you already got people in mind, so I guess
Well,
money
I
is not an
don't- I
issue
don't
with
have
these
the
positions.
salaries. Well, I mean, these would be new positions, so we will have numbers for you later on, but yeah.
And she never asked for anything.
I know, that's what I was
Except
like.
for a building.
Just a new building.
She says,
So,
Thank you.
just so I'm clear, on the FRID, the system is included in the new building, it's the tags, it's not, and tags are actually very cheap, right? Or is it different?
There's a technology budget included in the build project. However, there's nothing really prescribed yet exactly for that. So we'd have to see what other technology was necessary before we could fund it.
But it's likely that budget would go to the actual equipment that reads the tags, not
Yeah.
the tags themselves.
The tags themselves
are relatively cheap.
They are per item, but if you think about how many items
Oh,
we
yeah,
have
not
over there,
that.
you know, so it does add up, and I don't have a cost for that yet, but that's something we'll be looking into in the future.
All right, and I do like your logo, too. That is really cool.
Her logo. What are you talking? Oh,
The bronze?
the logo. It's beautiful.
Isn't that awesome?
I didn't see it. I was looking at notes.
All right, Keith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In essence of time, I will speed through this, but try and be as efficient as I can. The first one is not an item that we'll be asking for in budget. However, it is something that I highly suggest you consider for the future. It needs to be on our radar as a new facility for this, for animal services. The facility we have now was built in 2006 when we had a population of 13,000. We currently have 24,150 people in Saginaw, and we're growing. We're at capacity at all times, and when we are at capacity and above capacity, we have to put animals in temporary portable cages and store them in the hallways because we have no place for them. It's something I highly consider that you do is to stop by, take a good 2 hours of your day, find a good day to go to Animal Services. Right over there is our Animal Services manager, Jose Whelan, and he's the best there is, let me tell you. He's outstanding, and he's really turned that facility around to what it is now, and it's a remarkable job of what he's done. But I highly suggest you spend a good 2 hours and just let him take you on a tour of that facility so you can see what we have. First, you got to find it because it's hidden. It's in a unique spot. We talked earlier about the trap and release program. It's something that we're going to look at. Quickly tell you, going over this very quickly, is that anything can be done, but it takes money, which we don't have. It takes staff, which we don't have enough of, and it takes a facility, which we don't have, that's large enough to be able to do that. But it's something we'll bring to you at a later time in a work session. Any questions on animal services? Continuing animal services, these are some things, since you have this, I believe this in your packet, you can see some things that we're looking at that we've got to take care of, such as replacements of our body cameras. They're outdated. They don't make the parts, so if they break down, we're kind of out of luck. Radio system, our hand-me-down radios that we got from police department a couple of years ago, I believe. Part-time staff increase. They're all budgeted at about 25 hours, which gives us not much flexibility since we only have, I think, 2 part-time staff. Bringing them up to 29 hours. Overtime hours, because we're understaffed. We have about the same number of staff that we've had for about 10, almost 15 years. And as our city continues to grow, there's more workload on our staff, and then overtime comes into play. There's a few other things in there that are important, such as the HVAC system. Our HVAC system, I don't know if it's an original, but it's pretty dang close, which was from 2006, and it does not sufficiently work for our facility. Last thing I'll mention real quickly on animal services is our dog exercise yard. Jose and I were able to go on a tour of a facility in I think it was DeSoto, Cedar Hill area, and a lot of facilities are going to this to where they're replacing their grass with AstroTurf, concrete base, AstroTurf. That kind of dates me. I don't even think they make AstroTurf anymore, but you kind of get the point. And what the purpose of it is that when you go to Animal Services and you take your 2-hour tour, Jose will show you our dog run yard, and you'll see that it's in a drainage area, and you'll see the bumps and the holes where it catches water. What that does, and what that mud and that dirt does, is it holds and captures disease that we can't get rid of. The AstroTurf, because it's sloped, it's a drainage system, we can hose it off, we can more or less bleach it, clean it every day, as opposed to right now, it's just a mud pit after rains. It's something we can't, it's very, very difficult to take care of, and it allows for disease to be spread. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Keith.
Sure.
I know that we offer some services over to Blue Mound as far as capturing animals and housing them over in Saginaw. Have we ever approached Blue Mound about them paying for an employee for Saginaw? in exchange for the services that we offered?
They do pay us, and I believe the amount that they pay us is about $1,500 a year, which is nothing, but that's all that they could afford when we took over Blue Mound. They were paying a company out of, I think, Hazlitt or Roanoke, somewhere over there in that general area, that was taking care of it, and that's what they paid him. So that's all that they could afford to pay us.
Okay.
I like your idea.
We can't, you can't tell me no if I don't ask, so.
That's right. Community services, I'm going to skip over this. Yay. Get to save a little time. Miss Vicki talked a little bit about animals, or about aquatics. So skip over that. Senior center, this is something that that is desperately needed. We moved to our new facility, or our new temporary facility at the rec center. We went from 1,800 square feet. And while I say that it's 2,700 square feet is what they've gone to, it's actually a lot more than that. The 2,700 square feet is where when you walk into what's known as the senior center now, that's the senior center. But they also use the other classrooms, which is another 2,300 square feet. They have the ability to use the fitness room, of course, obviously the restrooms, and the kitchen, which is about double the size of the kitchen they had before. So doing that, it kind of surprised me in a way, but I'm glad that it's kind of a problem, but it's a good problem, and that we have more people coming to this senior center where it is now at the rec center than we had at the previous one. There's so many more benefits because they have so much more room that they have. They have a larger kitchen. They have much more restrooms, wide open stalls. They have much access to the fitness room that's right there, and I'll say one of the most important things is parking, because if you ever tried to park behind the old senior center, I challenge you to do it now when there's no cars there. And then imagine when it's lined up with cars on both sides. It's kind of it's a Tetris thing trying to get yourself in there and in and out. And there's plenty of ADA parking, there's plenty of parking, and there's lots of space. Any questions? Senior center.
Have we thought about seeing if Dave want this to make his full-time job part of the senior staff, and then the summer he worked the pool?
Sure.
I'm just saying, I mean, that way he can get on full-time, and, then we'll have this person, because the seniors need somebody. So, I don't know, it's just a thought. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to vote, but you have my vote. So. That's a good idea. Any more questions? Last is economic development. One of the things I'm asking for in this, we'll be asking for, is a full-time, it's a multi-purpose role. We're in Saginaw, we're low-staffed. Everyone in every department, Rick has told you before that he's a multitasker. I'm a multitasker. He and I both do the equivalent of about 3 or 4 department heads in any other city. So we understand multitasking, and all of our staff at the rec center are also multitaskers. What this position would be a multitasker, where it would be managing the food truck park, which is a full-time job everywhere else, and also be an assistant to economic development. When I took over economic development 2 years ago, I still kept everything I was doing before, all the other department head level jobs and responsibilities. I took over a position that was a department head who had an intern. I don't have an intern. I just took over that person's job. So I'm asking for this position to be an assistant for that, plus managing the food truck park. Any questions?
All right, I guess we come to my departments. Building permit, we added an inspector this past year. That inspector's going through certifications, et cetera, getting licenses, and now he doubles up on a vehicle, so we want to purchase an additional vehicle for him to have his own vehicle. We are going with a mid-size pickup for inspections instead of the full-size 4-wheel drives that we would have in public works and water departments. You're all familiar, been briefed many times on the rental inspection program. You've toured that. You've rode along on that program. You see the manpower required. We have one of those positions that's filled with an intern presently. The intern is going away, but that needs to be backfilled with a permanent position. I'm not sure that one position is enough. I'm sure Larry may reevaluate that. We have the code enforcement manager is going to reduced hours, and so she will retire at some point, Lisa Newsom. So, we want to probably look at the entire organization there to see what kind of staffing levels are appropriate. For the water and wastewater, I'm sorry, we're in public services. This was deferred maintenance. Last year, we had a request to replace this backhoe. The backhoe is on Band-Aids, and last week it broke down. It was in our parking lot for about 2 days. Actually broke down on a job. So we just can't maintain it anymore. So we want to replace that at $161,000.
Is that brand new, that price?
That's brand new, yes.
It better be for that price.
Well, they be more on Gold Rush.
They don't give equipment like this away.
I didn't know if that was.
If you like that price, the next one you'll love.
But could we get it, though? Is it on back order? How does that work?
To be honest with you, I mean, we got the request a couple of weeks ago, I guess, to do these one-time deals, and our fleet manager, Jeff, he couldn't find anybody that would give him a bid. I mean, because, it's like everything else. Right. It's just you can't find equipment or you can't find anything, really.
If you'd have talked to me a month ago, Gabe, I'd have sold you one of these, a dump truck, and a trailer to go with it.
You made us a deal, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I'd have made the deal.
Okay.
The city attorney may have something to say about that.
Keep going, Rick.
And then last is the water and wastewater department. We have a vac truck. That's a big number. Replacement about $603,000. The vac truck, if you're not familiar with that piece of equipment, is a versatile multi-task equipment.
Is this the one that sucks all the stuff just right out of the ground?
That vacuum, that little nozzle that you see on the boom there at the end of it, it can pick up boulders, and so it's useful for cleaning out manholes, inlets, pipes, etc. One of the other things that the truck can do is the hose there you can see can be high pressure hose to unlock or unblock blockages in sanitary sewers, etc. And then also one of the really useful parts of this tool is that if you have a utility clearance, you have multiple utilities in the ground, this can excavate in a non-destructive manner. So it uses a water jet to loosen the material and then the vacuum to suck it out. And so you expose those utilities in a non-destructive way. So,
I had a demonstration this weekend.
If you want to use a volunteer, we'll use that vacuum, just pick you up, and you can see what kind of power it has. So.
And it cleans up the street when they finish doing all the work.
So anyway, that concludes.
Rick, when's the last time we bought one of these? I know we bought, this is like.
They live in a harsh environment, and so they have about a 5-year life. This one has about a 5-year life to it.
Seems like we just bought one, so.
Yeah. So,
Mayor, we'll wrap up, and again, this is the intent is to introduce you to these topics we'll talk about in detail in future months. Would like you to consider giving current year one-time retention payment to employees. So what we're proposing is $500 for all full-time employees with at least 1 year of service, $250 for all part-time employees. So we're in a situation where we really can't fill vacancies. It's likely not going to improve in the near future, which is why we're recommending that we don't look at adding any positions. Keith did some research. I know it's late. We're not going to talk much, but this is pretty common for some of our local employers in the area. So definitely would ask for that consideration.
Our council, any questions?
So this had nothing to, so when we was looking at the 5%, what was we looking at, that 5% earlier? This is.
Yeah, so what I would propose, if it's the council's pleasure, to offer these amounts as a one-time payment, and then we look at 5% effective October 1st. I know it's a big number, but I sent some articles about inflation as well as competition in the market. You know, we're competing with everybody. Vicki mentioned it, within a 25, 30-mile radius. So it's a difficult hiring environment.
Can you send us that number of what that might look like
Of
annually for that 5% across the board? for
Sure.
everybody?
Yep.
A rough estimate is about $625,000. That's the salary plus Social Security plus TMRS.
Everything, yeah. Ongoing. Our council, any other questions? Any other budget questions? So this is like step one of our budget process, so we're just getting started. So appreciate the information, appreciate department heads, all the presentations, good background information for us.
So, on this one-time payment, is that something we need to take action on sooner, or?
So I wanted to throw it out there. Y'all can think about it. I honestly think it's money well spent, and the sooner the better. We can bring that to you in April.
Mid-year budget will be in April, right?
Yeah.
We can consider it mid-year budget time.
Yep.
We'll make revisions at that point. That would be an appropriate time to consider. So.
Did that 600,000, that annual increase, did that have anything to do with the health care? No.
That's just their standard.
I know,
And that's
no,
just
but-
a ballpark. I reserve the right for that number to change.
No,
But
I
just a
understand that.
rough- A rough estimate, it's for every percent, it's about $125,000. So that would include the 5% salary plus the benefits that increase when the salary increases.
Okay, and so are you guys looking into the whole healthcare switching plans and all of that, or whatever?
We have an employee committee, and then our benefits broker will have better information in May.
Thank you.
May, June timeframe.
All right, so at 9:25, we're adjourned from regular session. We're going to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. We will return to adjourn.